"You can borrow against the house," my mother said, like she was suggesting I change grocery stores. She slid a folded bank brochure across her kitchen table. My father sat beside her with both hands around a coffee mug, although he wasn't drinking from it. "The hospital needs the deposit in 12 days, I said. "The fundraiser already has the money." Mom pressed one finger against the brochure. "It has most of the money." That was the first time either of them admitted something was wrong. "My name is Jasmine Hawkins, and I'm 40 years old. If you've ever been treated like the capable one until being capable became your punishment, I understand. Please like this video and subscribe." I looked from my mother to my father. "What does Melissa's bakery have to do with Brianna's surgery?" Dad set down his mug. "Don't start making accusations. I asked a question, and I'm telling you to watch how you ask it." We were sitting in the same kitchen where I'd paid their overdue electric bill 3 winters earlier. I'd also spent one Saturday sorting their insurance statements at that table. Mom had brought me coffee then. Dad had called me his lifesaver. That morning, neither of them would look directly at me. Mom pushed the brochure another inch across the table. "Melissa is under a lot of pressure," she said. "The expansion hasn't gone the way she expected. My daughter needs heart surgery. We know that." "Then why are we talking about Melissa?" Dad leaned back and exhaled through his nose. "Because this family has more than one problem." I left the brochure where it was. To understand why they expected me to pick it up, you have to understand my place in the family. Melissa was the one who needed support. I was the one who provided it. That arrangement had been in place for so long that nobody discussed it anymore. Back in 2012, when I was 26, Dad hurt his shoulder and couldn't keep up with the household paperwork. It wasn't a serious injury, but he hated making phone calls. Mom got nervous whenever an envelope had the word "important" printed on it. I started coming over every other Thursday. At first, I paid bills while Mom cooked dinner. Then I organized their insurance papers. I made a list of passwords, due dates, and account numbers. I called the cable company when their rate went up. I disputed a medical charge that appeared twice. It was supposed to be temporary. It never stopped. By the following year, Dad would leave unopened mail in a basket for me. Mom started texting pictures of bills instead of reading them. If the pharmacy changed one of their automatic refills, they called me before they called the pharmacy. Melissa never helped with any of that. She'd come through the kitchen while I was working and say, "You're so good at boring stuff." Then she'd take something from Mom's refrigerator and leave. When Melissa needed help, the situation was always presented as urgent. A rent increase was urgent. A broken mixer was urgent. A slow month at the bakery was urgent. Once, she ordered custom packaging before confirming the price and came up short on payroll. Dad called me that evening. "Your sister made a mistake," he said. "How much?" He paused. "Why do you always make it about the amount?" "Because you called me for money. I covered the shortage. Melissa paid back less than half. After a few months, Mom said bringing it up was damaging our relationship. That was how most things worked. Melissa created the emergency. My parents explained why it wasn't really her fault. I fixed it, and mentioning the cost afterward became the greater offense. Brianna saw this before I did. She was grown by the time she finally said something. We were driving home from my parents' house when she asked why Grandpa had given me a stack of insurance forms during dinner. "He wanted me to look at them," I said. "Why can't he look at them? He gets confused by the statements." "He wasn't confused when he explained the whole problem to you." I glanced at her. She was watching the dark road ahead. "It takes me 10 minutes, I said. "That's not what I asked." I didn't have an answer that would satisfy either of us. Brianna was 19 when the surgery became real. The problem had been monitored before that, but monitoring is a comfortable word. It makes you think time is on your side. Then one afternoon, a cardiology appointment stopped being routine. The specialist pulled his chair closer and turned the computer screen toward us. He explained that Brianna's heart valve was no longer doing its job well enough. Medication could manage some symptoms, but it couldn't correct the valve. Brianna sat very still. I asked, "How soon?" "Oh." He gave us a window, then explained the tests she'd need before the procedure. I wrote everything down on the back of an envelope because I'd left my notebook in the car. In the elevator, Brianna stared at the floor numbers. "You don't have to tell Grandma today," she said. "Why wouldn't I? She'll tell Melissa, and then somehow we'll be comforting Melissa." I almost told her that wasn't fair. Instead, I folded the envelope and put it in my purse. Mom cried when we told her. Dad walked out to his garage for several minutes, then came back and asked practical questions. For one evening, I thought the seriousness of it had cleared away the usual family habits. Melissa arrived late with a white bakery box. "I didn't know what people bring for this," she said. Inside were 6 cupcakes with pink frosting. Brianna thanked her. Melissa sat beside Mom and asked whether the surgery would leave a visible scar. Then she talked about a commercial space she wanted to lease for her bakery. "I know the timing sounds bad," she said, "but if I don't take it now, somebody else will." Nobody had accused her of bad timing. The financial estimate came a few weeks later. Insurance would cover much of the surgery, but the hospital required a $46,000 deposit for Brianna's portion and related charges. We'd also need money for travel, medication, follow-up appointments, and the weeks I expected to miss work. I had savings. I didn't have enough. Brianna read the estimate twice at my kitchen table. "I can postpone," she said. "No, Mom, listen. I am listening. You're doing the thing where you answer before I finish, because I know what you're going to say." She placed the estimate between us. "I don't want you wrecking your finances for me. This is what savings are for. You just said they don't cover it." "I'll figure out the rest." She looked down at the paper. I could tell she was calculating what her health would cost me. I hated that she had to think about it at all. The fundraiser was Dad's suggestion. He called the next morning and said people from church had already asked how they could help. Mom knew several community groups in Livingston. Melissa offered to provide baked goods for fundraising events. I hesitated because I didn't like putting Brianna's medical information in public. Brianna hesitated because she didn't want people treating her like she was already fragile. Then the hospital sent the formal deposit notice. We agreed to create the campaign. I set it up from my laptop at home. Brianna sat beside me and approved every sentence. We kept the description simple. We explained the surgery, the deposit, and the expected recovery expenses. The platform required us to choose how the money could be used. I selected restricted medical purpose. That meant the donations were for Brianna's treatment and related care, not general family expenses. The terms also said the organizer could remove a payout beneficiary and report misuse. If a restricted payment went somewhere it shouldn't, the platform could recover it and redirect the campaign balance. I read that section twice. Not because I expected anyone to steal from Brianna. I read agreements before clicking boxes. That was the kind of boring thing I was good at. I remained the campaign organizer. The organizer credential stayed in the password manager on my phone. Mom and Dad never had that password. They offered to serve as payout beneficiaries because I'd be taking Brianna to appointments and dealing with hospital calls. "We can handle the deposits," Mom said. "Give us something useful to do." The beneficiary role allowed them to receive approved payouts and provide destination information. It didn't make them campaign organizers. They couldn't change the purpose or see my organizer password. I explained that at their dining room table. Dad waved one hand. "We don't need all the details. Just show us where to sign." I should have paid attention to how quickly he dismissed the details. At the time, I thought he trusted me. The campaign went live on a Sunday evening. By Monday morning, people I hadn't spoken to in years had donated. A woman who used to work with Dad gave $50. Brianna's former supervisor gave $200. One of Mom's neighbors dropped off a check because she didn't trust websites. Every donation made Brianna uncomfortable and grateful at the same time. She kept saying, "We need to thank everyone individually." "We will." Not one of those copied messages. "We'll write real ones." Within 2 weeks, the campaign held $74,000. I sat on the edge of Brianna's couch when the total updated. She covered her mouth with both hands. "That's enough," she said. "It's enough." For the first time since the hospital estimate arrived, her shoulders dropped. The campaign had a scheduled donor thank you supper at Cottonwood Community Hall. Mom had reserved the hall through a community group. Melissa offered to cater it as a showcase for the bakery expansion. I didn't love connecting her business promotion to Brianna's medical fundraiser, but the food was being donated. At that point, arguing about it felt ungrateful. The first payout was $28,000. It was supposed to move through the beneficiary setup before being applied toward Brianna's medical costs. The remaining $46,000 would cover the hospital deposit. I checked the campaign page the morning the first payout showed as processed. Then I waited for Mom to confirm the deposit. She didn't. I called her that afternoon. Did the payout arrive? I haven't checked. The platform says it was processed. Well, processed doesn't always mean available. Can you check? I'm in the middle of something, Jasmine. I heard dishes moving in the background. It'll take a minute. Your father handles that account. Then put Dad on. He's outside. Mom's answers weren't impossible. They were just unusual. She usually called me before money finished moving. She once texted 3 times about a refund worth $19. I called Dad. He didn't answer. The next morning, I checked with the hospital. Nothing had been credited to Brianna. I checked the medical account I expected my parents to use. Nothing had arrived there either. When Dad finally returned my call, he said we needed to discuss the timing. What timing? The hospital deposit. Your options. Everything. The option is paying it. You're getting ahead of yourself. The deadline is in 12 days. We know when it is. Then where's the payout? He went quiet. In the background, I heard Mom say something I couldn't make out. Dad lowered his voice. Come over tomorrow morning. Why can't you tell me now? Because your mother and I aren't doing this over the phone. Doing what? We'll talk tomorrow. That was how I ended up at their house on Cedar Street, staring at a home equity brochure while they spoke about Melissa's bakery. I refused the loan. Mom's mouth tightened. Dad asked, So you're willing to let your sister lose everything? I'm not borrowing against my house until someone tells me where Brianna's payout went. You always have to make things difficult, Mom said. I stood up. Dad looked at me as if I'd broken an agreement. If you walk out, he said, don't expect us to keep rearranging our lives for all these appointments. Mom didn't object. She folded her hands over the bank brochure and looked down. I left without raising my voice. From my car, I called Brianna's cardiology office and moved her next appointment to a time I could manage alone. The receptionist found one late in the afternoon. It wasn't convenient, but it was ours. Then I opened the medical file I kept in my bag. I wrote the date beside the hospital notice and added 4 words. First payout not received. I took out my phone, opened the Fundraiser app, and entered the organizer password only I controlled. The dashboard loaded slowly on my phone. The campaign total still showed $74,000. Under payouts, the first $28,000 was marked completed. There was no warning, delay, or failed transfer notice. I took a screenshot. The beneficiary section still listed Roger and Sharon Hawkins. When I tapped their names, the app showed that the payout destination had been updated 3 days earlier. It didn't show the full destination on the mobile screen. There were 4 visible digits I didn't recognize. A note at the bottom said the detailed transfer record could be viewed from the organizer dashboard on a desktop browser. I checked the security page next. No unfamiliar device had entered my organizer account. Nobody had used my password. Whatever changed had been changed through the beneficiary side. That was one answer. The platform hadn't misplaced the payout. My account hadn't been hacked. My parents had updated something, and they'd done it before Dad asked me to come over. I changed my organizer password anyway. Then I removed their ability to receive campaign notifications. They were still beneficiaries, but they would no longer get an alert every time I opened a support request or changed a setting. It was a small thing. It was also the first family-related access I could remember taking away instead of granting. My phone rang while I was saving the new password. It was Mom. I almost answered. My thumb hovered over her name until the call stopped. A text arrived immediately. Your father says you left upset. Please don't punish Brianna because you're mad at us. I read it twice. Then another message came through. Also, the gas company charged us twice this month. Can you call when you get home? The second message was so normal that I laughed once in my parked car. Not because it was funny. My mother had just threatened to withdraw help with Brianna's appointments, and 10 minutes later, she assigned me a billing dispute. She wasn't pretending the kitchen conversation hadn't happened. She simply believed it had no effect on my duties. I didn't call the gas company. At home, I put the bank brochure question into my medical file, though I hadn't brought the brochure with me. I wrote down what Mom had suggested and what Dad had said about Melissa losing everything. Then I added the last 4 digits from the unfamiliar payout destination. Brianna arrived just after 6 with a paper bag of takeout. She set it on the counter and looked at my face. "What happened? Why do you think something happened? You alphabetized the mail." I looked down. 3 envelopes were lined up beside the fruit bowl. I told her about the conversation at my parents' house. I left out some of Dad's tone, but not the home equity loan. Brianna pulled out a carton of noodles and 2 forks. "They want you to borrow $46,000? They didn't give me an exact amount, because saying the amount would sound insane." I sat across from her. They kept talking about Melissa's expansion. "Did you ask where the payout went?" "Yes. And?" They wouldn't answer. Brianna stopped opening the second carton. "Mom." I checked the campaign. The payout says completed, but it didn't go where I expected. Where did it go? I can't see the full record on my phone. Her hand stayed on the folded cardboard lid. "Can they take the fundraiser money?" "No, the donations are restricted." That wasn't my question. I met her eyes. They're beneficiaries. They can update where an approved payout is received, so they can take it. They can receive it. They can't use it for something else. Brianna leaned back. I heard how weak the difference sounded once I said it aloud. She asked, "Why did you make them beneficiaries?" "Because they offered to help. You could have had the hospital receive everything." The first payout included recovery expenses. We didn't know every payment destination yet, and Grandma said she'd handle it. "Yes." Brianna nodded slowly. She wasn't blaming me. That almost made it worse. I opened 1 carton and stirred the noodles without eating. "They've done a lot for us," I said. "When?" I looked up. She didn't say it sharply. She looked genuinely confused. "They helped when you were recovering from that respiratory infection. Mom stayed with you while I worked, for 2 afternoons. They brought groceries. You ordered the groceries. Grandpa picked them up. That still helped." "Okay." The way she said it made me defensive. "They're my parents, Brianna." "I know. You say that like I forgot. I'm saying I know why you keep explaining them." I put down the fork. She looked at the envelopes beside the fruit bowl. "Did Grandma ask you to fix another bill?" I didn't answer quickly enough. "What was it?" "The gas company." "Of course. It might be a duplicate charge. Then Grandpa can call. He hates those automated menus. I hate heart surgery. I still have to do it." The room went quiet. Brianna looked down at her food. "I'm sorry," she said. "That came out mean." "No, it didn't. It came out louder than I meant. It was still true." I pushed the gas bill message aside and asked about her symptoms. She'd been tired that day but hadn't had chest pain. We reviewed the next appointment time and the list of tests. When I told her Grandma and Grandpa would no longer be driving her, she nodded. I didn't want to be in a car with them after this anyway. "We don't know what this is yet." "You don't?" I watched her fold the top of the paper bag into smaller and smaller sections. "What do you think it is?" "I think they want you to need something from them." That wasn't what I expected her to say. "Why?" "Because then they can make you feel bad when you ask." I told her I'd drive her to the appointment. I would adjust my work schedule. If something changed, we'd arrange another ride. She didn't argue, but I could see her doing the calculation again. Every hour I missed, every expense, every problem her body created for my calendar. I reached across the table and took the paper bag away from her hands. "You don't need to solve this for me. Neither do you. I'm your mother, and I'm an adult." "I know." "Then let me say when something is too much." I nodded, though I wasn't promising what she wanted. After she left, I opened the shared family calendar on my phone. Mom had deleted the 3 appointments she'd offered to cover. She hadn't called Brianna first. She hadn't asked whether we had alternatives. The removed entries sat in the calendar trash, each one marked with Mom's account. I restored them under my name, then removed my parents' editing access from Brianna's medical calendar. Mom noticed within 5 minutes. "Why can't I see the appointment schedule?" I typed, "Because you said you were no longer available." The dots appeared, disappeared, then appeared again. "We said we couldn't keep rearranging everything if you refused to cooperate." I wrote, "I made other arrangements." She called instead of replying. This time I answered. "You're being dramatic," she said. "I removed access you said you didn't need. That calendar was how we kept track of Brianna. I'll keep track of Brianna. You're cutting us out because we suggested a reasonable option. You suggested a loan." I said no. "You didn't even consider it." "I considered whether I would put my house at risk when the fundraiser already has enough money." Mom lowered her voice. "You need to stop saying that." "Why?" "Because it makes it sound like we don't care about Brianna. I didn't say anything about what you care about. You implied it." I asked where the payout went. She was silent for 2 breaths. Then she said, "Your sister has employees depending on her." There it was again. What does that have to do with the payout? Not every conversation has to be an interrogation. This one does. "I'm not talking to you when you're like this." She ended the call. I stood in my kitchen holding the phone. The gas bill message was still unanswered. I could have called the company, fixed the charge, and probably softened her before bedtime. That was my usual method. I solved something practical so nobody had to address what had happened. At 8:14, Dad texted me a picture of the gas statement. The account number was visible. So was the customer service number. He added one sentence. "Your mother is too upset to deal with this tonight." I set the phone face down. For years, I'd thought helping them made me part of the center of the family. Melissa received attention because she needed it. I received trust because I could handle things. I hadn't noticed that their version of trust mostly consisted of handing me work. The next afternoon, I drove Brianna to her pre-operative appointment. The clinic was on the 2nd floor of a medical building with a pharmacy downstairs. She signed in while I parked, and I found her in the waiting room filling out the same medication list she'd already completed online. "Did you bring the insurance card?" she asked. I held it up. "The deposit notice?" "In the file. Your coffee." I looked at my empty hand. That's what I forgot. She smiled for the first time that day. During the appointment, the nurse reviewed the surgery schedule and confirmed the deposit deadline. The procedure could remain on the calendar while payment was pending, but the hospital needed confirmation before final admission arrangements. "How firm is that?" I asked. "The date?" "The payment deadline." She glanced at the computer. "There can be a short administrative review if a direct payment is already processing, but they need documentation." "What kind?" "Confirmation from the funding source. Something showing the amount and destination." That was useful. I asked her to print the requirement. She returned with a 1-page note stating that verified direct payment could preserve Brianna's date during processing. I put it behind the deposit notice in my file. It didn't solve the missing $28,000. It gave me a little room if I could get the remaining money directed to the hospital. In the elevator, Brianna asked, "Are we still having the donor supper?" "As far as I know." Melissa texted me about the dessert table. What did she want? She asked whether I'd stand beside her when people took pictures. I stared at her. For what? She said it would help people connect the bakery with the campaign. The elevator doors opened. Neither of us moved until they started closing again. Brianna pressed the button. "She also wants to put business cards next to the cupcakes," she said. "No." I already told her I didn't know. "I'll handle it." She gave me a look. "What? You always say that." "This time it's my job." "That's also what you always say." We stepped into the lobby. My phone rang before we reached the exit. Melissa's name was on the screen. I answered and put it on speaker. "Hey," she said, "I need a quick favor." Brianna looked at me. I looked back at her. "What favor?" I asked. I'm finalizing the supper menu. Mom said you have the donor list, and I need names for the place cards. The donor list contains private information. I only need the important people. All the donors are important. You know what I mean. The people we should make sure to photograph. This is a thank you supper for Brianna. I know that, Jasmine. I'm donating thousands of dollars in food. You told us the food would cost about $800. That's the ingredient cost. My time has value. So does Brianna's privacy. Melissa went quiet. Then she laughed softly. Wow. Mom said you were in a mood. I took the phone off speaker and held it to my ear. You're not putting business cards beside the desserts. I haven't decided where anything is going. Brianna said you asked her to pose with you. It was an idea. The answer is no. Melissa's voice changed. Do you have any idea how much work I've put into this? Then scale it back. I can't scale it back now. People are expecting a professional event. Who told them that? Dad has been inviting business owners. I stopped beside the glass exit doors. Why? Because people want to support the family. Which part of the family? Oh, don't do that. Do what? Make everything ugly because you're stressed. Brianna was standing a few feet away, pretending to read a poster about flu shots. I asked, Did Mom or Dad tell you why they want me to borrow against my house? Melissa didn't answer. The lobby doors opened and cold air moved around my ankles. Melissa, they're trying to help you. That isn't what I asked. You're the one with a steady job and a house. I don't understand why taking a loan is suddenly some terrible insult. I tightened my grip on the phone. I hadn't told her about the brochure. I hadn't told her what kind of loan they suggested. How did you know it was against my house? There was a pause. Then Melissa said, Mom must have mentioned it. When? I don't know. Yesterday. Before or after they talked to me. I don't keep notes on every call, Jasmine. I'm starting to. She ended the call. Brianna walked over. She knew. She knew about the loan. Did she know about the payout? I didn't ask. You should have. I will. We crossed the parking lot without speaking. At home, I ignored another picture of my parents' gas statement. I opened my laptop, placed the hospital's direct payment note beside it, and signed into the fundraiser with my new organizer password. This time, I didn't stop at the campaign total. I selected the desktop transfer records and began reading from the date my parents changed the payout destination. The first entry showed the original payout destination, the medical account I recognized. The second entry appeared 3 days later. Beneficiary destination updated. It included the date, time, and the last 4 digits I'd copied in my car. Beside the account type, it said commercial checking. The organizer's summary didn't show the account holder's name. A gray privacy bar covered most of the routing information. It did show that the change came through the beneficiary login, not mine. 6 minutes later, the $28,000 payout had been released. I opened every menu on the page. The detailed transfer log required an extra identity check before I could download it. The platform sent a code to my phone, then asked me to upload a picture of my driver's license. I completed both steps. A message appeared saying the review could take up to 2 business days. Below that was a button marked Pause Future Payouts. I didn't touch it right away. The remaining $46,000 had not been released. It was still sitting inside the campaign. Pausing future payouts would keep it there, but the hospital needed that exact amount. If I stopped it without having another destination ready, I could create my own delay. I read the hospital note again. Verified direct payment could preserve the surgery date during processing. I opened the campaign payment settings in another tab. The hospital wasn't currently listed as a direct destination because my parents had volunteered to handle the transfers. Adding it required the hospital's payment information and a verification letter. I called the number on the deposit notice. The billing representative found Brianna's account and listened while I explained that we had a restricted medical fundraiser. I didn't tell her I suspected misuse. I said I wanted to know whether the campaign could send the deposit directly. Yes, she said. We receive those payments. What do you need from me? The platform should have a hospital verification form. I'm looking at it now. Send it to the secure billing address listed on your notice. Put the patient account number in the subject line. How long does verification take? Usually 1 to 3 business days after we receive the request. The hospital deadline was 11 days away. I asked, if I start that today, will you note it on Brianna's account? I can note that direct funding is being arranged. It doesn't count as payment confirmation. I understand. She paused. I can also mark the account for a 3-day administrative extension if verification is still pending at the deadline. That gave me something real. I thanked her, ended the call, and filled out the form. I attached the deposit notice and sent it to the secure address while I still had the nerve to do it. Then I went back to the campaign page and pressed Pause Future Payouts. The screen asked for a reason. I selected Destination under Review. A warning appeared that active beneficiaries might be notified if they attempted to request or modify another payout. I confirmed the hold anyway. The remaining balance changed from available to organizer hold. $46,000 was still there. I took another screenshot and printed both pages. My printer made a grinding sound halfway through the second sheet. I stood beside it until the paper came out. That deliberate move worked. My parents could no longer redirect anything else while I waited for the detailed record. The cost appeared less than 10 minutes later. Dad called. I let it ring once before answering. What did you do to the fundraiser? I put the remaining payouts on hold. Why? Because the first one didn't reach the medical account. It's being handled. Where was it sent? He didn't answer. I moved the printed transfer summary beside the phone. Dad, what are the last 4 digits of the account you used? What? The payout account. Read me the last 4 digits. I'm not sitting in front of the paperwork. You don't need paperwork. Open the banking app. I'm driving. I heard no engine noise, no road, only the television in my parents' living room. Call me when you stop, I said. Don't get cute with me. I'm asking where Brianna's money went. You're acting like we're strangers. Then answer like family. Dad breathed into the phone. The transfer hasn't settled correctly. Your mother is working on it. The platform says it completed. The platform doesn't know what the bank is doing. It knows which account received it. His voice sharpened. Did you call somebody? I checked my organizer dashboard. What exactly can you see? That question told me more than any answer he'd given. I said, enough to know the destination changed. He went quiet. I waited. Finally, he said, you shouldn't be freezing money people donated for Brianna. I'm protecting the money people donated for Brianna. You're going to cause a delay. Then tell me the new destination. I'll speak to your mother. He ended the call. I wrote down the time and his exact words. The part that bothered me wasn't only that he'd lied about driving, it was how quickly he'd asked what I could see. He wasn't surprised the destination had changed. He was worried about the amount of information available to me. Mom called 6 minutes later. I answered with the printed page in front of me. Your father says you locked the campaign, she said. I paused future payouts. You need to undo it. Where did the first payout go? We already explained that there was a banking issue. No, you didn't. You offered me a loan. Because we're trying to make sure the hospital gets paid. Read me the last 4 digits of the account you selected. She hesitated, then gave me 4 numbers. They belonged to the original medical account. I looked at the transfer summary. That isn't where it went. It may not have updated on your end. The beneficiary changed the destination 3 days before the payout. Then the platform made a mistake. The change came through your login. Mom's breathing shifted. I could hear her moving through the kitchen. A cabinet opened, then closed. Your father handles the online part, she said. Dad said you were handling it. We handle things together. Then one of you can explain. You're making this much bigger than it needs to be. It's $28,000. Lower your voice. I'm sitting alone in my house. You know what I mean. I did know. She meant I was stepping outside the tone she preferred. I was allowed to fix problems, but I wasn't allowed to make anyone uncomfortable while I did it. Was the money sent to a business account? I asked. She stopped moving. Why would you ask that? The platform identifies the destination as commercial checking. That could mean anything. It means it wasn't the medical account. Banks classify accounts strangely. What business owns it? Mom didn't answer. I waited until the silence became an answer of its own. Then she said, "Take the hold off and we'll sit down as a family. We already sat down. You came in angry. I came in asking where the payout went. You refused to hear any solution. A home equity loan isn't a solution to missing fundraiser money." Her voice became soft. "You've always been so good at finding a way through things. I don't understand why you're choosing now to become rigid. Choosing now, as if the timing were the offense." I looked at the hospital notice. "I'm not removing the hold. Then whatever happens with the surgery schedule is on you." Mom hung up. I didn't move for several seconds. Then I added her statement to my notes. At 9 that evening, Brianna called. "Grandma texted me." "What did she say?" "That you froze the fundraiser because you're fighting with Grandpa." "I froze the next payout because the first one went to an account I don't recognize." Brianna was quiet. "Did you find out whose account?" "Not yet. Is the rest safe?" "Yes." I could say that with confidence now. The remaining $46,000 is still inside the campaign. I put it on organizer hold. "What about the hospital?" "I started direct verification today. They gave us a possible 3-day extension if it's still processing near the deadline." She exhaled. "Okay?" I heard a drawer close on her end. Then she asked, "Why would Grandma text me that? To get you to pressure me." "I'm not going to." "I know." "Do you?" I leaned back in my chair. "I know you shouldn't have to. That wasn't my question either. She had a way of doing that." She found the sentence beneath the one I gave her. "I was afraid you'd think I'd mishandled the campaign," I said. "I do think you trusted them too much." The words landed cleanly because they were true. "But I don't think you did this," she added. I rubbed my thumb along the edge of the printed transfer page. "I should have sent everything directly to the hospital. You were trying to let them help. I should have known better." "Probably." I laughed once, though I didn't feel amused. "You could pretend to soften it. You don't need me to tell you this is all your fault. Grandma's already covering that." That stopped me. I asked what Mom had written. Brianna read the message aloud. "Your mother is making choices from anger. We're trying to protect your future, but she won't listen. Please remind her that this isn't only about her." I closed my eyes. "Send me a screenshot." Already did. The image appeared while we were still on the phone. I saved it with the transfer pages, then told Brianna not to answer. I wasn't going to. "If either of them contacts you again, keep the message." That sounds serious. It might be. What are you going to do? Wait for the detailed record. Finish the hospital verification. Keep the remaining money where it is. And if they keep lying? I looked at my notes from both calls. Then I stopped asking them to explain something they already understand. The next morning, I received confirmation that the hospital had accepted the verification request. The campaign platform still showed my identity review as pending. Mom sent no message. Dad sent one. "You need to call the gas company before they add another late fee." I stared at it while drinking coffee. For 1 second, habit took over. I opened the gas company website and reached for the account information I kept in my password manager. Then I stopped. I had their utility login because I'd created it. Their payment card was saved. Their paperless billing went to Mom's email, but every alert also came to mine because I'd set that up years ago. I signed in long enough to see the problem. There was no duplicate charge. The previous month's payment had been returned because the card on file had expired. The new statement included the missed payment and a late fee. Dad's replacement card had arrived weeks earlier. I knew because I'd activated it for him when he said the automated phone system was confusing. I didn't update the gas account. Instead, I texted Dad. "The charge isn't a duplicate. Your saved card expired. Log in and replace it with the card in your wallet." He replied immediately. "Just do it. You're already in there." I typed, "No, I'm handling Brianna's hospital payment." His answer came back before I set down the phone. This family used to help each other. I read that sentence several times. Then I opened my password manager and counted their entries. Utilities, insurance, pharmacy, roadside assistance, property tax, streaming services, and the account they used for household repairs. I had 23 saved logins for my parents. They didn't merely call me when something went wrong. I'd built their entire system around my availability. I had told myself they depended on me because they trusted me. Sitting there, I finally saw the other side of it. I depended on being needed because it was the only family role nobody could give to Melissa. That didn't excuse what they were doing. It did explain why saying no made my hands shake. I closed the password manager without changing the gas account. At noon, the Fundraiser platform sent a message asking for one more identity check. I completed it from my work computer during lunch. A support representative confirmed that the detailed transfer record existed and could be released to me as the organizer. She also confirmed that the destination had been changed by an approved beneficiary. "Can you tell me the account holder's name?" I asked. "Not until identity review clears." "When will that happen?" "By tomorrow afternoon at the latest. The hospital deadline is approaching. I see the campaign is restricted medical." "Yes. If the transfer went to an unrelated destination, you'll have a misuse reporting option after the record is released. I know. Don't remove the organizer hold while you wait. I won't." That was the first direct confirmation from someone outside my family. The account change was real. It came from the beneficiary side. The platform had retained the details. After the call, I wrote tomorrow afternoon on a sticky note and placed it on my laptop. Then I opened the campaign's beneficiary settings. My parents' names were still there. Beneath them was a button to remove beneficiary access. I didn't press it yet. Removing them before I had the full record would warn them that I was done waiting. Instead, I opened the access history and downloaded the dates of every beneficiary login. There were 2 recent entries from my parents' usual home device. There was also a third entry from a device the platform identified only as a mobile browser. It appeared 6 minutes before the payout destination changed. The location listed was Livingston. I printed that page too, placed it behind the transfer summary, and waited for the account holder's name. The identity approval came at 1:37 the next afternoon. I was at my desk with a half-eaten sandwich beside the keyboard. The message included a link that would expire in 24 hours. I closed my office door before opening it. The platform asked for my password again. Then it sent another code to my phone. After I entered it, a document appeared with the campaign number, transfer date, amount, and destination history. The original destination was the medical account. The updated destination was listed below it. Account holder, Melissa Hawkins. Account type, business checking. The amount beneath her name was $28,000. The status said completed. I stared at the screen until it dimmed. Then I moved the mouse and read it again. There was no bank error, no delay, no strange account classification. My parents had changed the payout destination to Melissa's business account. 6 minutes later, the platform sent her the money collected for Brianna's care. I downloaded the record. The file included a verification number at the bottom. The support page explained that anyone reviewing the document could enter that number and confirm it came directly from the platform. That mattered to me, even though I wasn't ready to show it to anyone. I printed 2 copies. One went into my locked desk drawer. The other went into the medical file behind the access history. Then I called Brianna. "Can you come by after work?" What happened? I got the detailed record. She went silent. "Do you want to tell me now? I'd rather show you. I'll be there at 5. For the rest of the afternoon, I did ordinary work badly. I answered emails. I moved figures from one spreadsheet to another. I joined a meeting and took notes I couldn't remember 10 minutes later. At 4, the hospital sent confirmation that its payment destination had been verified by the Fundraiser platform. The direct hospital option was now available inside my organizer settings. I opened it, selected Brianna's patient account, and set the remaining balance to go there. A notice appeared. The payment change would take effect after the organizer hold was released. If a misuse review was submitted, the hold would remain until the review team cleared the campaign. I left the hold in place. Before I could file anything, I needed Brianna to know what I had found. The campaign used her name. The surgery was hers. I wasn't going to make her learn about Melissa from a platform notification or a family argument. Brianna arrived carrying 2 coffees. She placed one beside me and sat at the kitchen table. I handed her the transfer record. She read the top section first. Then her eyes moved down to Melissa's name. She didn't speak. I watched her thumb press into the paper near the completed status. Finally, she asked, "Could this be some account Grandma uses for expenses?" No. It identifies Melissa as the account holder for the bakery. Yes. Did Grandma and Grandpa do the change? The access record says it came through their beneficiary login. What about that other phone? I don't know who used it. Could Melissa have had their password? It's possible. But they knew the destination changed. They lied about it when I asked. Brianna set the paper down carefully. 28,000. Yes. For cupcakes? I don't know what she used it for. She has the supper pictures all over her business page. I hadn't looked at Melissa's page in weeks. Brianna opened it on her phone and turned the screen toward me. Melissa had posted sketches of the dessert table at Cottonwood Community Hall. She'd added a caption about community, family, and new beginnings. Under it was a picture of a commercial oven being delivered to the bakery. The post was dated the day after the payout completed. That doesn't prove she bought it with the fundraiser money, I said. I know. She put down the phone. Are you going to call them? No. Brianna looked surprised. You're not? I asked Dad. I asked Mom. I asked Melissa how she knew about the loan. They all had chances to tell me. What are you going to do? Remove Grandma and Grandpa as beneficiaries. File the misuse report. Keep the remaining money directed to the hospital. She looked at the transfer record again. Can the platform get the $28,000 back? The campaign terms say it can recover a restricted payout. I've never used the process. What if Melissa spent it? I don't know. What if filing delays the surgery money? I verified the hospital today. The remaining $46,000 is assigned directly to Brianna's account. The hospital can extend the deadline for 3 days if the payment is processing. That's not much time. No. She stood and walked to the sink. She didn't need anything there. She turned on the faucet, rinsed a clean spoon, then shut the water off. I can postpone, she said. No, don't do that again. I took a breath. We have enough money still protected for the deposit. If the review goes wrong, we don't. The review has the transfer record, and Grandma and Grandpa are going to say you misunderstood. They can say that. Melissa will say it was a loan. She can say that too. Brianna turned around. You sound very calm. I'm trying not to scare you. I'm already scared. That was the moment I stopped treating her fear as another problem I could manage privately. I pulled out the chair beside me. She sat. I'm scared too, I said. But the money still inside the campaign is safe. I can control where it goes. I can document what happened to the first payout. Those are the parts I know. And the parts you don't? I don't know how fast the review will be. I don't know whether the recovery will work if Melissa moved the money. I don't know what Mom and Dad will do when I remove them. Brianna wrapped both hands around her coffee. Thank you. For what? For saying you don't know. We sat there for another minute. Then I opened the beneficiary settings. My parents' names appeared together. Beneath each name was a red removal button. The platform asked whether I wanted to remove both beneficiaries from this campaign. I selected yes. It asked for a reason. I chose restricted funds sent to unrelated account. The next screen warned that removal could not be reversed while a misuse review was open. I confirmed it. Their names disappeared. Only my organizer account and the verified hospital destination remained. Brianna watched the screen change. Can they get back in? Not without my organizer credential? Do they have it? No. Does Melissa? No. I opened the misuse form. Most of it was simple. Campaign number, patient name, transfer amount, intended purpose, receiving account. I attached the authenticated transfer log and the hospital deposit notice. One question asked whether I had contacted the former beneficiaries about the destination. I checked yes and added the dates of both calls. Another asked whether the receiving account holder had provided a medical invoice or expense connected to the campaign. I checked no. At the end was a statement confirming that everything I submitted was accurate. I read it aloud before signing my name. Then I pressed Submit. A case number appeared. The platform said the first review usually took 3 to 5 business days. The hospital deadline was 9 days away. I saved the confirmation and printed it. Brianna leaned her forehead into one hand. So now we wait. For the review, yes. For them to notice, no. She was right. Dad called before she finished her coffee. I answered, but I didn't put him on speaker. You removed us, he said. Yes. Put us back. No. What are you trying to prove? I'm protecting the remaining balance. From your own parents. From any destination except the hospital. He lowered his voice. Did you file something against us? I looked at Brianna. She was watching me completely still. I changed the payout setup, I said. That isn't what I asked. I'm not discussing the platform review with you. So you did. I didn't say that. You have no idea what you're interfering with. Then explain it. He stopped. I waited, but he didn't. Finally, he said, Melissa signed a lease based on certain commitments. What commitments? That's her business. Then why are you talking to me about it? Because you've created a mess that affects all of us. I didn't send the payout to her account. Dad went silent. It was the first time I'd said it directly. When he spoke again, his voice was quieter. You need to come over. No, your mother is beside herself. She knew where the money went. You don't know everything. I know enough not to meet privately. Privately? We're your family. That didn't make the kitchen conversation honest. He asked, Is Brianna there? I didn't answer. Put her on. No. Jasmine, don't involve her in your suspicions. The campaign is for her surgery. You involved her when you changed the payout destination. He hung up. Brianna stared at my phone. You said Melissa's account. Yes. He didn't deny it. No. That was another piece of truth, though it didn't feel useful. Mom called next. I let it go to voicemail. Melissa called twice. I let both calls go. Then the messages started. Mom wrote that I had humiliated Dad by removing him from an account he'd agreed to manage. Melissa wrote that business arrangements were more complicated than I understood. Neither message mentioned Brianna's medical expenses. I saved both. At 6:30, Melissa sent another one. You need to withdraw whatever complaint you made before you damage my business. I read it to Brianna. She knows there's a complaint? Brianna asked. She knows there could be one. The platform may have told her the beneficiary access was removed. Does she know what you submitted? No. Are you going to answer? I typed one sentence. Do not contact Brianna about the campaign. Melissa replied immediately. You don't get to control who I talk to. I wrote. You may contact me in writing. Then I muted her. Brianna watched me do it. You've never muted her before. I've wanted to. That isn't the same. No. The donor supper was scheduled for the following weekend. Invitations had already gone out. Cottonwood Community Hall had been reserved, and Melissa had promoted the catering online. I asked Brianna whether she wanted to cancel it. She thought for a while. Would the donors know why? Not unless we told them. Then it would look like we took their money and disappeared. We could send a written thank you. People planned around it. You don't owe them a public appearance. I know, but I want to thank them. I understood that. The donors hadn't done anything wrong. We can change the caterer, I said. With what money? I had no answer. The campaign funds were restricted. I wasn't using them for a replacement meal while the hospital deposit was under review. Melissa had offered the food as a donation, and there wasn't time to arrange another full menu without paying for it myself. Brianna said, Let her cater. I don't want you trapped in a room with her. I won't be alone. She'll use the event to advertise. Then tell her no business cards. I already did. Tell her again in writing. I sent a message stating that the supper would remain a donor thank you event, that Brianna would not pose for bakery promotions, and that no business cards or sales materials were permitted on the campaign tables. Melissa didn't respond. Mom did. She sent a message to the family group chat, the one that included relatives who had donated. Jasmine has removed us from Brianna's fundraiser and is refusing to release the money while the hospital deadline approaches. Roger and I are doing everything possible to protect Brianna's future, but we cannot help if Jasmine keeps shutting us out. Replies began appearing beneath it. One relative asked whether the donations were safe. Another asked why the fundraiser was frozen. Dad wrote that emotions were high and everyone should remain calm. I saved screenshots. Brianna read the messages over my shoulder. They're making you sound like you took it. I know. Are you going to tell them? I looked at the authenticated transfer record on the table. Not in a group chat. Mom's next message appeared before I could put the phone down. We will address everyone's concerns at the thank you supper. That was when the private problem became a public appointment. Within 20 minutes, 6 relatives had replied. Most of them asked reasonable questions. One wanted to know whether the hospital had been paid. Another asked if her donation was still inside the campaign. A third said she didn't want to take sides but hoped we could resolve things privately. Mom answered each question before I could. The funds are being held because Jasmine changed the account. We have tried to discuss practical options. Roger and I no longer have access, so we cannot complete the payment. Every sentence was technically connected to something true. Together, they created a lie. I could have uploaded the transfer record to the group chat. I could have put Melissa's name beside the amount and ended the confusion in 1 minute. I didn't. The platform review was active. I didn't know whether publishing the receiving account information would interfere with it. More importantly, Brianna's medical campaign wasn't a family courtroom. I called her. I want to post a campaign update, I said. Only payment information. Nothing about Melissa. What would it say? I read my draft. The remaining campaign balance is secured under organizer control. The hospital has been verified for direct payment, and the deposit is being processed through the platform's review system. Brianna's surgery remains scheduled. We'll share an update when payment is confirmed. Brianna considered it. Take out secured, she said. Why? It sounds like something was unsecured. She was right. I changed it to protected, then showed her the final version by video call. She approved it. I posted the update on the campaign page. Replies began appearing beneath Mom's family message. People had received the official campaign notification. One relative copied the update into the chat and said it answered her question. Another wrote, "Glad to hear the hospital is being handled directly." Mom stopped replying. Dad called me instead. "You posted over your mother," he said. I updated the donors. "You made her look dishonest." I didn't mention her. "You knew what you were doing." I told people where the remaining money is going. They didn't need to know any of this. "You told them the fundraiser was frozen?" Because it is. The money is protected for direct hospital payment. You keep using that word. Which word? Protected. I waited. Dad realized what he'd said and changed direction. "You're embarrassing your mother in front of people she sees every week." She announced the problem. "Because you wouldn't communicate." I asked where the payout went. "You told me to take out a loan. We're not doing this again. Then stop calling." He went silent. I'd never said that to him before. Dad usually ended conversations. He decided when a question had become disrespectful, when a subject was closed, and when I needed time to calm down. This time, I ended the call. My hand shook afterward, but I still did it. The next morning, the platform asked for more information. The receiving account holder had responded to the recovery notice. Melissa hadn't been told whether the claim would be approved, but she knew the transfer was being reviewed. Her response appeared in a short summary. Recipient states payment was authorized as a temporary family business advance connected to continued support for the patient. I read the sentence 3 times. Continued support for the patient. Melissa had turned her bakery expansion into something that benefited Brianna. The platform asked whether any written agreement allowed the funds to be used outside medical expenses. It also asked whether the campaign description mentioned supporting a family business. I answered no to both. I attached the campaign terms and the hospital notice. Then I added a short statement. No organizer authorization was given for a loan, advance, business expense, or transfer to Melissa Hawkins. The campaign was created for Brianna Hawkins's medical care. The recipient's bakery has no role in paying or providing that care. I didn't write anything about favoritism. I didn't describe the kitchen conversation. I gave them facts they could verify. The platform confirmed receipt and gave me 48 hours to submit anything else related to authorization. That created a problem I hadn't expected. My parents had been the payout beneficiaries. Melissa was claiming they authorized the transfer. She wasn't denying where it went. She was arguing that their permission was enough. I knew the campaign terms said otherwise. Only the organizer could approve a change in purpose, and the restricted purpose couldn't become a bakery loan. Still, I needed the platform to see the difference between permission to receive a payout and permission to change what donations were for. I opened the original campaign setup email. It showed the date I created the organizer account and the date I added my parents as beneficiaries. The organizer credential was mine. The restricted medical purpose had been selected before their access existed. I saved the email with the transfer log. Then I opened my messages and searched for every conversation about the fundraiser setup. There were dozens. Mom asking which picture of Brianna to use. Dad asking whether checks could be added to the online total. Melissa asking if the bakery logo could appear on the supper invitation. I found the message where Mom volunteered to handle deposits. You'll have enough going on with appointments. Let Dad and me manage the payout account. We'll make sure every dollar gets where it belongs. I took a screenshot. It didn't create a second solution. The transfer log still showed what happened. Mom's message only showed what she had promised before it happened. I submitted it to the review. At lunchtime, Melissa called from a number I didn't recognize. I answered because I thought it might be the hospital. "You blocked me," she said. "I muted you. Same thing." "No, it isn't. You sent my private banking information to some investigation department. I sent the campaign's transfer record back to the platform that created it. You had no right. I'm the organizer. Mom and Dad authorized that payment. They weren't allowed to change the purpose. It was temporary, then return it." She stopped. I could hear metal trays clattering behind her. She was at the bakery. "You don't understand what a reversal would do," she said. "What did you use the money for? That's not your concern. It became my concern when you accepted medical donations. They weren't medical donations when they reached me. Yes, they were. Mom said there was extra. The hospital deposit alone is $46,000, and the campaign raised $74,000. I stood and shut my office door. You knew the total. It was public. You knew the first payout was $28,000. Mom told me. When? I don't remember. Before it reached your account? Melissa lowered her voice. I'm not answering questions like I'm some criminal. I didn't call you one. You filed a misuse complaint because you received restricted money. You always do this. Do what? Act like paperwork matters more than people. I looked at the campaign terms on my screen. Paperwork is the only reason Brianna still has $46,000 protected. She would have had her surgery either way. How? You have savings, you have a house, you have credit. There it was again. My resources weren't mine. They were the family's backup plan. What does that have to do with you keeping the payout? Mom and Dad made a decision. Then why are you defending it? Because you're trying to destroy my business over money you can replace. I didn't answer. Melissa continued. I have equipment payments due. I ordered inventory for the expansion. I hired people based on the new space. If the platform pulls that money now, everything hits at once. You knew the money was for Brianna. I knew Mom and Dad were handling it. That isn't an answer. It's the answer you're getting. Return the money. I can't. It was the first useful thing she'd said, not won't, can't. Before I could ask why, she said, "If you keep pushing this, don't expect me to stand there at Cottonwood while you make me look like a thief. You offered to cater for the donors. I offered before you attacked me. You've already advertised the event." "Exactly. People are expecting my food. Then decide whether you're catering or promoting. I can do both. No business cards, no bakery banner, no photographs of Brianna for your page. You can't control the whole room. I can control the campaign tables and Brianna's participation." Melissa laughed. "You think being the organizer makes you important. It makes me responsible. Those aren't the same thing." She hung up. I saved the call time and wrote down her statement that she couldn't return the money. That afternoon, Brianna and I went to Cottonwood Community Hall. The hall sat off a 2-lane road surrounded by dry grass and cottonwood trees. Inside, it had folding tables, a low stage, a kitchen with 2 industrial sinks, and a projector screen mounted above the front wall. Mom had reserved it through her community group. Her name was the main contact. Melissa was listed for kitchen access. My name appeared nowhere. The hall manager showed us the room layout. She was carrying a ring of keys and a clipboard. Sharon asked for the microphone near the center table, she said. She said there would be a family presentation. "What kind of presentation?" I asked. She didn't specify. Just speeches and donor acknowledgments. Brianna and I looked at each other. "Can the campaign use the projector?" I asked. "Of course. Who controls it? Any laptop can connect from that table." She pointed to a narrow table near the stage. I asked whether we could test it. She brought out the cable. I connected my laptop and opened the thank you slide Brianna had made, just a list of community groups and a picture of a heart drawn in blue. The image appeared on the screen. That was useful. We could thank donors without handing the microphone to my parents for the entire evening. I asked the manager to note that the projector was reserved for the campaign presentation. She wrote it on her clipboard. Because Mom held the reservation, I couldn't remove her access or prevent her from speaking. I also didn't want to turn a thank you supper into an argument over who controlled a microphone. We spent the next hour arranging tables. Brianna wanted the donors seated together instead of separating people by family groups. We placed the campaign table near the front and the bakery tables along the side wall. A stack of Melissa's printed menus sat in the kitchen. Her bakery logo covered the top third. At the bottom, in smaller letters, was a line offering event catering consultations. Brianna held one up. She already printed these. I took a picture and sent it to Melissa. "These are promotional materials. They won't go on the donor tables." Her response came while I was still holding the phone. Mom approved them. I wrote, "Mom is not the campaign organizer." The kitchen door opened behind us. Mom walked in carrying a box of tablecloths. Dad followed with 2 cases of bottled water. She saw my laptop connected to the projector. Then she saw the menus in my hand. "What are you doing here?" she asked. "Preparing for Brianna's supper. This is my reservation. It's her fundraiser." Mom set the box on the counter. Dad looked from the projector screen to my medical file beside the laptop. His eyes stayed on the file for 1 second too long. "What are you planning to show?" he asked. "The donor thank you presentation." "That's all?" I closed the file. "That depends on what needs to be answered." Mom's face changed. Not much. Her mouth tightened and she looked toward Dad. They knew then that I had something beyond suspicion. They didn't know what the platform had shown me, and they didn't know whether recovery would be approved. But they finally understood I was no longer coming to Cottonwood Community Hall to let them explain me. Mom crossed the room and reached for the file. I put my hand on it first. "Don't," I said. She stopped. Dad set down the bottled water. "Nobody is taking anything," he said. "Then nobody needs to touch it." Mom looked at Brianna. "Could you give us a minute?" "No," Brianna said. "This is between your mother and us. It's my fundraiser. It's family business. It's my surgery." Mom blinked as if Brianna had spoken out of turn. Dad pulled out a folding chair and sat. He pointed toward another chair for me. "Let's lower the temperature." "The room is fine," I said. "You know what I mean." Melissa came through the kitchen door before I could answer. She carried a box of sample plates against her hip. When she saw all of us together, she stopped. "Did she tell you to come?" I asked. Melissa set down the box. "I have kitchen access." "She asked if you knew we'd be here," Mom said. "I didn't." Dad looked at Melissa. "Not now." Melissa crossed her arms. "No, I think now is exactly when we should talk. She reported my account and won't answer the phone. I answered yesterday. You interrogated me. I asked what happened to the money. You know what happened." Brianna said, "I don't." Melissa's expression shifted. For the first time, she seemed to remember that Brianna wasn't a picture on the campaign page. She was standing 6 feet away. Mom stepped between them without making it look like she was doing that. "There was a plan," she said. "It was supposed to help everyone." "What plan?" Brianna asked. Mom looked at Dad. He rubbed one hand across his mouth. "Melissa had a deadline on the new space," he said. "There were deposits and equipment commitments. Brianna waited." Dad continued, "Your surgery date was still several weeks away. We believed we had time to work out the rest." "How?" she asked. "We were discussing options with your mother. You told her to borrow against her house. That was one option." Melissa pulled out a chair and sat down hard. "Can we stop saying that like it's some terrible thing? People borrow money every day." "For their own expenses," Brianna said. "You are her expense." The room went silent. Melissa looked at me immediately. That came out wrong. Brianna's face didn't change. Melissa tried again. "I meant parents pay for their children. That's normal. I'm 20. You're still her daughter, and you're still theirs." Melissa looked away. Mom picked up one of the tablecloths and refolded an edge that didn't need folding. "We knew Jasmine would find a way," she said. "She always does." I asked, "Was that the whole plan?" "There were several possibilities. Name another one." Dad said, "The bakery would start producing more revenue once the expansion opened." "When?" "Soon." "How soon?" "You don't understand the business timeline. Neither do you." Melissa stood. "I can repay it. You told me you couldn't. I said I couldn't return all of it right this second. How much can you return?" She looked at Mom. "I waited." Melissa said, "The review has already disrupted payments. That isn't an amount. I have payroll. That isn't an amount either." Dad pushed back his chair. "This is exactly why we didn't tell you at first. You reduce everything to a number and a deadline. The hospital reduced it to a number and a deadline." "We weren't going to let Brianna miss surgery," Mom said. Brianna asked, "What were you going to do if Mom refused the loan?" Nobody answered. That was the part they hadn't planned for. Their plan depended on me doing what I'd always done. I was supposed to protest, feel guilty, make a few phone calls, and solve the shortage before anyone outside the family noticed. Melissa gathered the sample plates. "I'm leaving," I said. "Are you still catering?" She gave me a look I couldn't read. "Yes." "No promotional materials. We've discussed this. I need a direct answer." "Fine." "No business cards? And no bakery photos with Brianna." "Fine." She picked up the box and left through the kitchen. Mom waited until the door closed. "You've made her feel like she isn't welcome at her own event. It isn't her event. She donated the catering and received $28,000. Dad stood. "Keep your voice down. There's nobody else here. The manager is in the office. I'm not the one who made this public." Mom placed both palms on the table. "If the platform takes that money back, Melissa could lose the bakery." I looked at her. "And if it doesn't? Then she'll repay the campaign over time. The surgery deposit is due now. You have other resources." She said it without hesitation. That was the true plan. Not a misunderstanding, not a temporary mix-up. They had counted my house, my savings, my credit, my job, and my willingness before they counted the donations people gave for Brianna. I packed my laptop. Mom asked, "Where are you going?" "To take Brianna home." "We haven't finished." "I have." The next week showed me exactly what their decision cost. Without my parents driving, I handled every appointment. One test was moved from the afternoon to 8 in the morning. Another office called with an opening and gave us 20 minutes to accept it. I accepted everything. I used the last of my paid personal time on the first 2 appointments. The third came out of my paycheck. My supervisor called me into a conference room after I returned. "I know this is medical," she said. "I'm not asking for details, but I need to know whether your schedule will keep changing." "I don't know." She nodded. "We can approve unpaid time when needed. I just can't keep moving your deadlines to other people." "I understand." A project I'd been preparing for months was reassigned that afternoon. Nobody punished me. Nobody said I wasn't committed. My name simply disappeared from the meeting invitation and someone else's appeared in its place. That hurt more than a lecture would have. I sat in my car after work and checked my bank balance. I could cover my household expenses and the unpaid days for a while. I could not keep pretending there was no professional cost. At home, I found Brianna sitting at my kitchen table with the hospital notice. She had highlighted the cancellation number. "What is that?" I asked. "The number we call if we need to postpone. We don't." "You lost that project." "How do you know? You left the conference folder in your car. That doesn't mean the surgery changes. You're missing pay. Grandma and Grandpa are telling people you froze the money. Melissa says her business is falling apart. None of that is your responsibility. Then why does every problem have my name attached to it?" I sat across from her. She pushed the notice toward me. "If we postpone for a few months, Melissa can repay the campaign." "No." "You don't know that she won't." "I know she didn't repay me the last time I covered her payroll. This isn't about the last time. It's the same pattern, and you keep stepping into it." I looked at her. She continued before I could answer. "You're still trying to make this hurt nobody. I filed the complaint. You still haven't told the donors what happened. The platform review is private." "I know. I'm not saying post her bank account online, but Grandma told everyone you're holding the money. You answered with a payment update because you didn't want to embarrass her. I wanted to protect your privacy. You also wanted them to calm down." She was right. I had spent days trying to recover the money without destroying the family arrangement around it. I wanted the hospital paid. I wanted Melissa to return the payout. I wanted Mom and Dad to admit they'd made a mistake. Some part of me still believed those things could happen quietly, and then we could all return to our assigned places with better rules. Brianna folded the hospital notice. "If I have the surgery on schedule, they're going to tell people you overreacted because everything worked out." I didn't answer. "If I postpone," she said, "they're going to say it was my choice." That was the strong turn I couldn't explain away. Every available outcome had already been arranged to protect the people who caused the shortage. If you've ever reached the point where being reasonable only helped someone hide what they did, leave the word enough in the comments. My goal changed at that kitchen table. Getting the deposit paid was still necessary. It was no longer enough. Brianna needed the surgery without carrying the shame of its cost. The donors needed to know their gifts had been handled honestly. My parents needed to function without using my house, time, and silence as available family property. I picked up the cancellation notice and placed it back in the medical file. "We're not postponing," I said. "What if the review isn't finished? We use the extension. If that runs out, I deal with the hospital directly. I don't borrow against the house, and you don't cancel because Melissa spent money she knew wasn't hers. What about Grandma and Grandpa? They don't get to turn payment into proof they were right." Brianna studied my face. "What does that mean?" "It means I stopped trying to settle this privately with them." The platform sent another update that evening. My parents had submitted a joint statement supporting Melissa's response. They did not claim the bakery expenses were medical. They said the family understood the first payout would be used temporarily to stabilize Melissa's business. They also wrote that I had sufficient personal borrowing options to replace the funds before the hospital deadline. The platform asked whether I had agreed to that arrangement. I answered no. Then I uploaded the message where Mom had promised to make sure every dollar reached its proper destination. There was a blank box for additional explanation. I wrote 4 sentences. I did not authorize a business advance. My parents knew the hospital required a $46,000 deposit. They changed the first payout destination without informing me. Their expectation that I would borrow personal funds was never discussed with me before the transfer. I submitted it. The review page changed from waiting for organizer response to under final assessment. The next morning, Mom left a voicemail. "We tried to explain this as a family decision," she said. "Now you've made us look like liars. If you refuse to fix that before the supper, we'll have no choice but to tell people why we did what we did." I saved the voicemail. She still believed the reason would excuse the act. I didn't call her back. Instead, I opened the donor supper file and removed the page where I'd planned to thank my parents for managing the campaign payments. That left a blank space under the section labeled Family Support. I deleted the section. The presentation became shorter. One slide thanked the donors. One explained that the hospital had been verified for direct payment. The last listed ways people could help during Brianna's recovery, mostly meals and rides after she came home. I didn't include my parents' names. I didn't include Melissa's bakery logo. Then I made a written plan for the supper. Brianna would speak first. I would give the campaign update. Mom and Dad could offer a brief thank you if they wanted. Melissa would handle the food. Nobody would discuss Brianna's medical details beyond what she had already approved. Nobody would ask for more donations. Nobody would promote a business. I sent the plan to all three of them in one message. Melissa replied first. "You don't get to assign me a role at an event I'm catering." I wrote, "You volunteered to cater. If you no longer want to, tell me by noon tomorrow." Mom answered next. "This sounds very controlling." I didn't respond. Dad called. I let it go to voicemail. His message lasted nearly 3 minutes. He said Mom had done most of the work reserving the hall. He said Melissa was contributing more than anyone realized. He said I was turning a community event into a personal statement. He never mentioned the transfer. I saved the voicemail and returned to the other job I'd been avoiding. My password manager still held 23 logins for my parents. I made a list of the accounts. I didn't print their passwords or send private information through email. I listed the company name, customer service number, due date, and whose email was attached. Then I called Mom. She answered on the first ring. "Are you finally ready to talk? I'm handing back the household accounts." "What does that mean?" "It means I won't manage your bills, insurance, pharmacy, or online services anymore." There was a short silence. "This is because of Melissa. This is because you and Dad need to manage your own accounts. We didn't ask you to control everything. No, you asked me to fix things one at a time. I built the system around that. You offered. I did. Then don't act like we forced you." "I'm not. I'm stopping." Her voice tightened. "You can't just walk away in the middle of everything. The gas account needs Dad's new card. The insurance payment is automatic. The pharmacy login has Mom's email. I'm sending a list. I don't know those passwords. They're in the notebook I made for you." "What notebook?" "The blue one in the desk drawer." "That thing is years old. The account names are still correct. You can reset any password using your email." She made a frustrated sound. "This is childish. I'm giving you the information while everything is current. What if something gets missed? Then you call the company. You know your father won't do that. Then he can decide what happens next." Mom lowered her voice. "Your father is 65 years old. He uses online banking every week. That isn't the point. It is the point. You're punishing us. I'm removing myself from work that belongs to you. What about Dad's insurance appeal? I haven't received any appeal paperwork. It's coming. Then he can read it when it arrives." Mom stopped speaking. I could almost hear her searching for the sentence that usually worked. She moved through guilt, emergency, and family duty so naturally that I'd rarely notice the order. "What if we make a mistake?" she asked. "That one usually got me." I looked at the list on my desk. "Then you correct it." She ended the call without saying goodbye. I removed my email as the backup contact from the gas account. Then I removed it from the pharmacy and roadside assistance accounts. I didn't cancel anything. I didn't change their passwords. I simply stopped receiving alerts for problems that weren't mine. The property tax account required a phone call because I was listed as an authorized contact. I told the clerk I was no longer managing payments for the owners. She removed my name. The whole process took less than an hour. I expected to feel free. Mostly, I felt nervous. At 3 that afternoon, an automated gas company email arrived before my backup address was fully removed. Payment method updated. Past balance paid. Dad had managed it. I opened the account one last time. The new card was saved, and the late fee was gone after he used the online chat to explain the expired card. He had done in 20 minutes what he'd spent 3 days insisting only I could do. I signed out and deleted the login from my password manager. That was the first visible proof that the family could function without me in the middle. Dad texted soon afterward. Fixed the gas bill myself. Hope you're happy. I wrote, I'm glad it's handled. He replied with a thumbs up that felt more hostile than any paragraph. The hospital called the next morning. The direct payment setup had passed its verification. Because the fundraiser review was still active, the money hadn't been released, but the payment destination was accepted and attached to Brianna's account. Does her surgery stay on the calendar? I asked. Yes, the billing representative said. The deposit deadline remains the same, but the direct funding record is noted. If review is still pending, the administrative extension is available. I asked her to send that confirmation in writing. It arrived before we ended the call. I forwarded it to Brianna. She called me immediately. So the date is safe? For now. We have the original deadline plus the extension if needed. And the money can't go anywhere else? It's assigned to the hospital. She exhaled slowly. That's the first good thing anyone has told me all week. It's a real step. Did you tell Grandma? No. Are you going to? The campaign update says direct payment is being arranged. She can read that. Brianna was quiet. Then she asked, Did Grandpa fix the gas bill? How did you know about that? He called me. My grip tightened on the phone. What did he say? He said you abandoned them with overdue utilities. It was one expired card, I figured. Did he ask you to talk to me? He said he hoped I could help you see how far you were taking this. I stood from my desk and closed the office door. What did you tell him? That I had an appointment. Did you? No. I almost laughed. Then she said, he also asked whether you showed me the platform documents. What did you say? I said the campaign was your responsibility. That was a careful answer. I knew where she'd learned it. Thank you. Mom, they know you have proof. They know I have access to the dashboard. What if they cancel the supper? The reservation is in Grandma's name. She could. What if they do? Then we thank the donors another way. And if they don't? I looked at the presentation on my computer. Then we follow the plan. After work, I returned to Cottonwood Community Hall with the printed agenda. The hall manager was setting up a coffee station for another meeting. She remembered me and pointed toward the projector table. I added your campaign presentation to the event notes, she said. Thank you. Your mother called this morning. What did she want? She asked whether anyone had changed the reservation. Did she cancel it? No. She confirmed the supper. That surprised me. The manager continued. She did ask that the center microphone remain available for the family presentation. Can there be 2 microphones? We only have 1 wireless unit. There's a wired microphone on the stage. I looked at the room. The center microphone would be near my parents' table. The stage microphone would be beside the projector. I'll use the wired one, I said. The manager showed me how to turn it on. We tested the volume and placed a strip of tape over the switch so I could find it quickly. Then I connected my laptop. The thank you slides filled the screen. I advanced through them twice and checked that no private donor amounts appeared. I also made a printed copy in case the projector failed. Physical preparation settled me in a way family conversations never did. A cable worked or it didn't. A table fit or it didn't. If a microphone needed batteries, I could replace them. Before leaving, I placed the written agenda in the event binder. The manager initialed the page. That didn't give me authority over my parents. It simply recorded what the campaign presentation required. Mom arrived as I was closing the binder. She held a garment bag over one arm. "You keep coming here without telling me," she said. "The manager knows I'm here. I'm the one responsible for this room. I'm responsible for the campaign presentation." She looked at the wired microphone beside the screen. "You're not using the center microphone?" "No. Why?" "Because this one connects to the presentation area." Mom walked to the laptop and looked at the first slide. "Where is the page thanking your father and me?" I removed it. She turned. "So you're going to humiliate us. I'm going to thank the donors and update them on the hospital payment. And if someone asks why we were removed, I'll answer accurately." Her eyes moved to the event binder. "What did you put in there?" "The agenda." She opened it and read the page. When she reached the rule about business promotion, she gave a short laugh. "Melissa spent all day revising her menus because of you. She could use plain cards with the food names." "She did. Good." She also canceled the photographer. "We didn't need a photographer. It would have been nice to have pictures." Brianna said no promotional photos. Not everything is promotion. With Melissa, it is. Mom closed the binder. "You've become very cold. I'm being clear. You used to care how things affected people. I still do. Not your family." I unplugged my laptop. "Brianna is my family. You know what I meant." "Yes." That answer bothered her more than an argument would have. As I put the cable away, Mom said, "Your father and I will still speak. I know, we're going to explain our side. You said that in the group chat, and you're comfortable letting everyone hear private family information?" "I didn't schedule the explanation. You could prevent it." "How?" "Withdraw the complaint. Restore our beneficiary access. Tell people there was a misunderstanding. That would be false. It would keep this from becoming ugly. It's already ugly. You just kept it out of view." Mom picked up the event binder. I held out my hand. "That stays here. It's my reservation. It belongs to the hall." The manager looked over from the coffee station. Mom set the binder down. She smoothed the cover with one palm. "You think these little rules are going to protect you?" she said. "No. They protect the event. From us? From becoming something it wasn't supposed to be." She lifted the garment bag and walked out. The following morning, the campaign page received 3 requests from donors asking for detailed payment information. All 3 used nearly identical wording. "Please provide a full accounting before the supper, including why the original beneficiaries were removed." I answered each with the same factual message. The remaining balance was assigned to the verified hospital destination. A restricted payout review was pending. A payment update would be provided when the platform completed that review. I didn't name my parents. I didn't name Melissa. An hour later, Dad posted in the family group, "Since Jasmine refuses to explain, Sharon and I will provide the full timeline at Cottonwood. We have nothing to hide." The plan had given them a target. They were no longer trying to persuade me in private. They were preparing to use the supper to make my boundary look like the betrayal. The revised agenda arrived that afternoon. Mom had removed my presentation. The welcome would be given by her. Dad would provide what she called a campaign accounting. Melissa would introduce the meal and recognize local business supporters. Brianna would thank the donors at the end. My name appeared only beside the line "Campaign Organizer, no remarks scheduled." Brianna called as soon as she received it. "What does no remarks scheduled mean?" "It means they don't intend to give me the microphone. Can they do that?" "Grandma controls the reservation." "This is your campaign. It's her room." "Then we don't go." "If we stay home, they give their version without us. Isn't that what they want?" "Yes." She was quiet. I opened the attachment again. Mom had added 2 pages of seating assignments. My parents' table was in the center beside the wireless microphone. The campaign table had been moved to the back wall. Melissa's bakery table was now beside the stage. "She changed all the tables," I said. "Why?" "To control where people look." "That sounds paranoid." "I know. I didn't say you were wrong." The hall manager called me 10 minutes later. "I wanted you to know Sharon changed the event instructions," she said. "I received the agenda. She removed the reserved campaign presentation time. Can she do that? She's the reservation contact. What about the projector? She reserved it for the family accounting. I looked at my laptop. Can I still bring my presentation? You may bring it. I just can't promise you a scheduled time or control of the equipment. I understand. I'm sorry. I thought the event was connected to your campaign. It is. She didn't ask the obvious question. Before ending the call, she told me the wired microphone would remain on the stage because it was part of the room's setup. Mom couldn't remove it, but she could decide who used it during the reserved event. That was the advantage I lost. I had prepared facts, slides, and a clear update. My parents had prepared a room where I would look disruptive if I tried to give any of them. Melissa sent a new menu that evening. Her bakery logo was back at the top. The consultation line had been removed, but each page included her website and social media name. I wrote, "These are still promotional." She replied, "Mom approved them for her event." I didn't argue. The event had become exactly what Melissa wanted, a full room, local donors, and photographs of her food. My parents had given her the best tables and a speaking role. The only thing she couldn't control was the review. That night, 2 donors messaged me through the campaign. One asked whether I had used donations to pay personal bills. The other asked why I refused to provide my parents with the hospital invoice. Neither claim had appeared in the family group. Someone was contacting donors privately. I responded with the hospital verification confirmation and nothing else. I covered Brianna's patient account number before attaching it. The first donor thanked me and apologized for asking. The second wrote, "Sharon said you would probably send a partial screenshot." I closed the message without answering. My reputation wasn't something I could protect by chasing every conversation. Each answer created another question, because the questions weren't coming from confusion. They were being supplied. The next morning, the platform sent an urgent review notice. Melissa had submitted a request to stop the recovery process. She said an immediate reversal would cause payroll and vendor payments to fail. My parents supported her request and asked that the transfer be treated as a private family dispute. The platform gave me 2 options. I could withdraw the misuse report and resolve the payment directly with the recipient, or I could confirm that I wanted the restricted purpose review to continue. A warning explained that if misuse was confirmed, the platform could reverse the entire transfer. It would not divide the amount into a repayment schedule. Any effect on the recipient's business account would be between the recipient and her bank. I had until noon the next day to choose. That was the moral cost in plain language. Withdrawing would leave medical donations inside her expansion and turn Brianna's fundraiser into an interest-free family loan nobody had agreed to make. I printed the notice and put it in the medical file. At 5:30, my parents came to my house. Mom carried the blue account notebook I'd made for them. Dad carried a folder of bills. I opened the door but didn't invite them farther than the entryway. Mom held out the notebook. "If you're going to abandon all of this, you need to explain it properly. I sent a list. A list isn't the same as showing us." Dad fixed the gas account. Dad's face tightened. "That took most of an afternoon. Your text said 20 minutes. That was after I got through to someone. You used online chat." He stared at me. Mom pushed the notebook toward me. "We're not here to argue over the gas company. What are you here for?" "To give you one last chance to stop this." I didn't take the notebook. Dad opened his folder and pulled out a printed copy of the platform notice. Melissa had forwarded it to them. "You know what recovery will do to her account," he said. "I know what the notice says. She could miss payroll. Then she needs to speak to her bank. She wouldn't have this problem if you withdrew the complaint. She wouldn't have it if she refused the transfer." Mom said, "We told her it was approved. By you. We were the beneficiaries. You were allowed to receive the payout. You weren't allowed to change its purpose." Dad shook the paper. "You keep hiding behind rules. I'm following the campaign terms. You wrote the campaign terms. The platform wrote them. I selected the medical restriction before you had access." Mom looked toward the kitchen. "Is Brianna here?" "No." "Good. She doesn't need to hear this. She already knows." Mom's eyes came back to mine. You showed her the account record? Yes. You had no right to involve her in adult financial decisions. It was her medical fundraiser. She's vulnerable right now. She's 20 years old. You're using her fear to justify what you're doing. I gripped the edge of the door. What do you want? Dad answered. Withdraw the complaint tonight. We'll tell the platform the issue is resolved. It isn't. We'll work out repayment with Melissa. When? She needs time. How much time? A year, maybe longer. The hospital needs the deposit now. The remaining money covers the deposit. Then why did you tell donors I was preventing payment? Mom stepped closer. We were trying to get you to cooperate before this reached the point of no return. You mean before the platform recovered the money. We mean before you damaged your sister's business and our standing in the community. There it was. Brianna's surgery had disappeared from the sentence. Dad put the notice back into his folder. If you continue, we will explain everything at the supper. You already said you would. We'll explain that you knew Melissa's business was struggling. We'll explain that you had ways to cover the hospital deposit. We'll explain that you chose to file a complaint instead of helping your sister. All of that is true except the part where I agreed to give her fundraiser money. People can decide for themselves. Mom held out the blue notebook again. And if you walk into that hall with private bank records, don't expect us to pretend this family can go back to normal. I looked at the notebook. It contained years of my handwriting, payment dates, policy numbers, notes reminding Dad which pharmacy filled which prescription, a list of questions Mom wanted me to ask during an insurance call. For a long time, that notebook had felt like evidence that I mattered. Now they were using it as a return receipt. I took it from her. I'll check that the account list is current, I said. Then I'll give it back. Mom looked relieved too quickly. I'm not taking the accounts back, I added. Her relief disappeared. Dad said, then keep the notebook. We'll figure it out ourselves. He dropped the folder of bills on top of it. I handed the folder back. No, those stay with you. He didn't take it. I placed it on the small table beside the door. Mom said, if you keep going with this, Melissa may not cater. That's her choice. There may be no supper. That's yours. You'd let all those people arrive to an empty room? You invited them. You reserved the room. You announced that you'd provide an accounting. You see? Dad said to Mom, she doesn't care who gets hurt anymore. I opened the door wider. I have until noon tomorrow to answer the platform. I'm not discussing it with you again. Dad picked up his folder. Mom stepped onto the porch, then turned. Your sister has always needed more help than you. I know. You used to understand that. I used to pay for it. She stared at me. Then they left. Brianna came over an hour later. I hadn't told her they were visiting, but Mom had texted her from the car. She found me at the kitchen table with the platform notice. Are you going to continue? She asked. Yes. That was fast. It wasn't. She sat across from me. What happens to Melissa's employees? I don't know. That bothers you? Yes. What happens if you withdraw? Melissa keeps the money. The review ends. Grandma and Grandpa tell everyone it was resolved. And the hospital? The remaining balance may still go through, but the first payout stays outside the campaign, so the surgery can happen either way. Probably. Brianna looked at the notice. Then this isn't only about the deposit anymore. No. Is it revenge? I took time before answering. If I wanted to hurt Melissa, I could publish everything tonight. I haven't. That isn't a no. No, it isn't revenge. What is it? It's refusing to make the donors finance her bakery because my parents decided I could absorb the loss. She traced one finger along the edge of the paper. I don't want people losing jobs because of my surgery. Neither do I. Then how do you choose? I choose the purpose people gave the money for. Melissa chose the other costs when she accepted it and spent it. Brianna nodded, but she didn't look comforted. Neither was I. At 11:20 the next morning, I opened the platform notice. I selected Continue Restricted Purpose Review. A confirmation box asked whether I understood that an approved recovery could reverse the full transfer without a family repayment option. I checked yes. The final button said Confirm Organizer Decision. I pressed it. The review status changed to Recovery Assessment in Progress. My parents had taken the room, the agenda, the microphone, and part of the family's belief in me. I accepted that they might keep all of it. The transfer log was the one thing they couldn't rearrange, and I chose to let it finish what I had started. The platform sent a verification message that afternoon. It wasn't the recovery decision. A review specialist had confirmed that the transfer record was authentic and that my organizer credential controlled the campaign purpose. The message answered the question Melissa and my parents kept trying to blur. A beneficiary could choose where an approved payout was received. A beneficiary could not change a restricted medical campaign into a business loan. Even if both beneficiaries agreed, the organizer's purpose remained in force. The support message included the transfer verification page. I entered the number printed at the bottom of my copy. The page returned 5 details: campaign identifier, transfer date, transfer amount, receiving account holder, completed status. It didn't display Melissa's routing number or full account number. Anyone with the verification code could confirm the important part without seeing her private banking information. That removed one uncertainty. My parents couldn't make the record look like a spreadsheet I'd created. Melissa couldn't call it an edited screenshot. The platform itself would confirm the entry. I printed a fresh copy. Then I used a black marker to cover the final 4 account digits. They weren't necessary. The account holder's name, amount, campaign number, and completed status remained visible. I made 3 copies of that page and no others. The full file held much more. It included my parents' login history, Mom's promise about the deposits, their statement about my borrowing options, Melissa's response, and my notes from every call. Putting all of that on a screen would have been easy. It also would have turned years of family history into entertainment for a room full of donors. Some people would have enjoyed it. Some would have chosen sides before dessert. The facts would have become buried under arguments about tone, old favors, and whether Melissa had always been selfish. I didn't need any of that. One transfer entry answered the relevant question. That evening, Melissa posted a long message on her bakery page. She didn't name me. She wrote about small businesses being vulnerable to sudden financial interference. She thanked customers for supporting a woman-owned local bakery during what she called an unexpected family dispute. The comments filled quickly. People offered to place extra orders. One person suggested a separate fundraiser for the bakery. Another wrote that family jealousy could destroy years of work. Brianna sent me the post. Please don't read the comments, she wrote. I had already read them. Melissa added a picture of the commercial oven being installed. In the caption, she said the expansion represented years of sacrifice. I could have replied with the transfer record. For a few minutes, I wanted to. I pictured placing the authenticated entry beneath her post and letting her customers ask why a medical campaign had funded the oven sitting behind her. Instead, I closed the page. The bakery account and the campaign were under review. Her customers weren't part of that process. Her employees weren't responsible for her decision. I wasn't going to use their fear to pressure her faster. I messaged Brianna. I'm not responding online. She called. I'm glad. You thought I would? I thought you might want to. I did. That's different. Yes. She asked whether the platform had decided anything. Not yet. It confirmed the campaign rule and authenticated the transfer entry. So they agree Grandma and Grandpa couldn't authorize it? They confirmed beneficiaries can't change the restricted purpose. That sounds like they agree. It means the rule is clear. The recovery decision is still pending. When will we know? The review page says before the hospital extension ends. That could be during the supper. It could. Brianna was silent. Then she asked, Are you bringing the record? Yes. Are you planning to show it? Only if they lie about where the payout went. They're going to. I know. Then why say only if? Because I'm giving them the choice in the room. They already had choices. This one will be in front of the people they contacted. Brianna breathed out. Do you want me beside you? You don't have to be. I asked if you want me there. Yes, then I'll be there. The next morning, I took the blue account notebook to my parents' house on Cedar Street. I hadn't told them I was coming. Dad was in the driveway cleaning out their camper. 2 folding chairs and a plastic storage bin sat on the pavement. He looked at the notebook in my hand. What's that? The account list. You could have mailed it. I wanted to make sure you received it. He wiped his hands on a rag. Your mother's inside. I can give it to you. He took the notebook but didn't open it. Did the platform make a decision? No. Then why are you acting like everything is final? I'm returning your information. You've managed this stuff for years. I know. What happens when your mother gets another insurance notice she doesn't understand? She calls the number on the notice. Dad gave a short laugh. You make it sound simple. It usually is. You enjoy this. What? Watching us struggle because we disagreed with you. I looked at the camper behind him. I'd renewed its registration twice. I'd found a replacement insurance policy after Dad missed a payment. I'd made the campground reservation for their last trip because Mom couldn't get the website to accept her card. I don't want you to struggle, I said. I want you to do it without assuming I'll step in. Same difference, no. He looked down at the notebook. Are you planning some kind of presentation tomorrow? Mom removed me from the agenda. That wasn't my question. I'm bringing the campaign payment update. What update? The hospital verification. Anything else? If you give an accurate accounting, that should be enough. Dad's jaw tightened. You're threatening us. I'm telling you what I'll answer. He stepped closer. If you put Melissa's banking information on that screen, she'll have every right to take action against you. I'm not showing private banking information, so you are showing something. I'm bringing the authenticated transfer entry. His face changed. It wasn't surprise, it was recognition. He knew exactly what the entry would say. Your mother will never forgive you, he said. I nodded. That seemed to frustrate him. You don't care? I care. I'm still going. You're willing to lose your parents over $28,000. No. You were willing to risk Brianna's surgery money because you expected me to replace it. He looked toward the house. The front curtain moved, then fell back into place. Mom was watching. Dad lowered his voice. We could still fix this. How? Withdraw the review. Let Melissa repay it after the expansion opens. No. Then don't show the record. If you tell the truth, I won't need to. You've already decided we're guilty. I've decided where the payout went. He held the notebook against his chest. You always have to be right. I wanted the money to be at the hospital. I would have preferred to be wrong. Mom opened the front door. She didn't come outside. Roger, are you coming in? He kept looking at me. Then he said, after tomorrow, things won't go back, I know. That was the future cost in the simplest form. Even if the money returned, my parents would remember that I let other people see what they had done. Melissa would remember that I chose the campaign rule over her bakery. I would remember that all 3 of them had agreed my house was available before asking me. There was no version of the supper that restored the old arrangement. I didn't want the old arrangement restored. I left Dad with the notebook and drove to the community hall. The doors were unlocked for kitchen deliveries. Melissa's staff had already brought in covered trays, stacks of plates, and boxes of plain menu cards. The menus still carried her bakery name, but the website and social media line were gone. She had followed that boundary. Melissa was standing near the side tables, checking the spacing between warming trays. When she saw me, she straightened. What are you doing here? Testing my laptop. Mom said you don't have presentation time. I know. Then why do you need a laptop for the hospital payment update if there's time? She glanced at my bag. Did you bring the complaint paperwork? No, that was true. I had brought only the verified entry. Melissa stepped away from the table. You want everyone to see my name. I want you and Mom and Dad to answer honestly. This event is supposed to thank people. Yes. Then why can't you leave this alone for one night? Because Mom announced that she would explain the fundraiser. You could tell her not to. I did. Melissa looked toward the kitchen doors. The review could ruin me. You can still return the money. I told you it isn't sitting there. What did you spend it on? Equipment, deposits, supplies, things the business needed. It was the clearest private answer she had given. Did you know where it came from before it reached you? She pressed her lips together. I waited. Finally, she said, Mom told me they were helping. That isn't what I asked. I'm done answering you. She walked into the kitchen. I connected my laptop to the projector. The hall manager had left the wired microphone on the stage. The center wireless microphone sat beside my parents' assigned seats. I opened the thank you slides and tested them. Then I opened the single transfer entry. Melissa's name appeared on the screen above the amount and completed status. The covered account digits showed as a black line. I left it there for 3 seconds. That was enough time to read it. Then I closed it and disconnected the laptop. On the drive home, I rehearsed the confrontation in my head. At first, I tried explaining the beneficiary rules. The sentences became too long. Then I tried listing every time my parents had expected me to fix Melissa's problems. That sounded like a different argument. By the time I reached my street, I had reduced it to one question. Where did the first $28,000 go? They could answer it. They could refuse. They could lie. I didn't need to control which choice they made. I only needed to stop making their answer easier. At home, I placed the 3 verified copies inside the medical file. One for the screen, one for anyone who demanded to inspect it, and one that would stay with me. The platform status still said, Recovery Assessment in Progress. The hospital payment still said, Verified Destination, Organizer Hold. I checked both again before bed. The next morning, the day of the supper, the platform added a final note. All evidence received. No further organizer action required. The outcome would be issued electronically when assessment processing finished. The former beneficiaries and receiving account holder would be notified at the same time as the organizer. I saved the note. Then I turned off campaign notification previews on my phone. I didn't want Melissa's name or Brianna's medical information appearing on the lock screen where anyone could see it. I left the sound on. Using the transfer record in that room would end any chance of pretending this had been a private misunderstanding. I put the medical file in my bag anyway and drove with Brianna to Cottonwood Community Hall. The parking lot was already half full. Through the hall windows, I could see people moving between the tables. Melissa's warming trays lined the side wall beneath small cards bearing the bakery name. Mom stood near the entrance in a blue dress, greeting donors as if she were hosting an anniversary party. Dad wore a sport coat I'd last seen at Christmas. Brianna paused beside my car. You okay? I asked. No. Do you want to leave? No. I took the medical file from the back seat. Inside, the center tables were reserved for relatives and community donors. Melissa's food looked professional. There were roasted vegetables, chicken, rolls, and 3 kinds of dessert. She had placed the new bakery menus at every setting. Mom saw us and smiled without warmth. You're late. We're 10 minutes early. People have been arriving for half an hour. Brianna said, Hi, Grandma. Mom's expression softened immediately. Sweetheart, you look tired. I'm fine. Sit with us. I saved you a chair. I'm sitting with Mom. Mom looked at me. The family table is in the center. We're at the campaign table. That's in the back. I noticed. Dad approached before Mom could answer. He leaned toward Brianna and kissed her cheek. Big night, he said. For who? She asked. Dad pretended not to hear. He looked at the file under my arm. You brought it. I brought the hospital update. That's all? I didn't answer. Melissa came out of the kitchen carrying a tray. She was wearing a white bakery jacket with her name stitched over the pocket. She stopped beside us. Can we please get through tonight without a scene? I haven't made one, I said. I'm asking in advance. Brianna looked at the tray. Where do you want help? Melissa hesitated. You don't need to help. I can carry plates. You're the guest of honor. I'm the patient. People nearby could hear us. Melissa smiled and handed Brianna a stack of napkins. Put these by the drinks, she said. Brianna took them. We spent the first 40 minutes thanking people. That part mattered. A woman who had donated $50 hugged Brianna and said she'd been praying for her. A retired couple told me they had shared the campaign with friends in another town. One of Dad's former co-workers asked whether the surgery date was still secure. "Yes," I said. "The hospital destination is verified." He nodded. That's what I wanted to hear. Nobody asked for family details while standing face to face with us. The questions had been easier to send through a screen. When dinner began, Brianna and I sat at the back campaign table. Mom stayed in the center, moving from person to person. Dad spoke quietly with relatives who had asked for an accounting. Melissa walked through the room, pointing out dishes and accepting compliments. After the plates were cleared, Mom picked up the wireless microphone. The room settled. She thanked everyone for coming. She thanked the community group for providing the hall. She thanked Melissa for donating the meal and called the bakery a family business built through courage and hard work. People applauded. Melissa stood beside the dessert table and smiled. Mom continued, "When Brianna received the news that she needed surgery, Roger and I promised that we would do everything possible to protect her future." Brianna's hand tightened around mine. Mom looked toward us. Families don't always agree on how to handle a crisis. Fear can make people suspicious. Stress can make people act before they have all the information. Dad nodded from his chair. Mom said, "There has been confusion about this fundraiser, and unfortunately, some people have been led to believe the donations were not safe." She paused long enough for people to look toward me. "I want everyone to know that Roger and I acted in good faith. We made decisions based on the needs of the entire family. At no point did we intend for Brianna to go without care." That sentence earned a few quiet nods. Mom handed the microphone to Dad. He stood. "The campaign raised $74,000, he said. "There is enough to cover the hospital deposit. That money is currently being held because Jasmine removed us from the account and filed a dispute." He looked directly at me. "We tried to resolve the matter privately. We offered practical alternatives. We were willing to help arrange financing so the medical payment could be made while other family obligations were addressed." A donor near the front raised her hand. "What other obligations?" Dad adjusted his grip on the microphone. "Melissa's bakery experienced an urgent cash need during its expansion. That business supports employees and contributes to this community." The room became very still. He continued, "We believed a temporary transfer could protect the bakery without affecting Brianna's surgery. Jasmine has stable employment, savings, and property. We knew she had the ability to bridge any short-term gap." Brianna whispered, "He said it." Mom took the microphone back. Melissa did not steal anything. Roger and I made a family decision. That was the admission, not all at once, not in one clean sentence. But everyone in the room had heard enough. I stood. Mom saw me and said, "Please let us finish." I stayed beside my chair. Where did the first $28,000 go? Melissa stepped away from the dessert table. "Jasmine, don't." I looked at Mom. "Where did it go?" Mom held the microphone against her chest. "We just explained the circumstances. You explained why you thought you could replace it. I asked where you sent it." Dad stood again. "This isn't necessary. It became necessary when you told donors I froze the money." Melissa walked toward the center table. "Stop doing this in front of everyone." I asked one more time, "Where did the first payout go?" Mom looked around the room. Then she said, "We gave it to Melissa." Nobody moved. I asked, "For Brianna's medical care?" Mom's face hardened. "For the bakery. Temporarily." Dad added, "Because you had options." Brianna released my hand. She stood beside me. A donor near the aisle asked, "Was that the money collected for the surgery?" Dad said, "The campaign had more than one payout." "That wasn't my question," the donor replied. Mom lifted the microphone. "Please." This is exactly the kind of misunderstanding we hope to avoid. I walked to the stage. The wired microphone was where the hall manager had left it. My laptop was in my bag beneath the campaign table, so I didn't try to use the projector. I took one verified copy from the medical file. "This is the fundraiser's authenticated transfer entry," I said. "It shows the first payout, the receiving account holder, and the completed status." I held it where the nearest tables could see. Then I handed it to the donor at the aisle. She read it and passed it to the person beside her. Melissa moved toward the paper. "That has private banking information. The account numbers are covered. You can't pass that around. The verification number is visible. Anyone can confirm it on the platform." Dad said, "Nobody is disputing that Melissa received money." Several people turned toward him. His face changed when he realized what he'd admitted. Mom put the wireless microphone on the center table. She walked toward me and lowered her voice. "You've made your point. No, you made it. Take the paper back. It's being returned." The copy had already moved through 2 tables. One donor entered the verification number on his phone. He showed the screen to the woman beside him. "It's real," he said. Melissa stood between the bakery table and the center aisle. Her face had gone pale. "You all knew the business was expanding," she said. "This wasn't some vacation." Nobody answered. She looked at Brianna. "You were still going to have the surgery." Brianna said, "Because Mom was supposed to borrow against her house. You don't understand what was agreed. I understand nobody asked her." Mom stepped toward Brianna. "We were protecting both of you." Brianna moved closer to me. My phone sounded inside my bag. At the same moment, Melissa's phone buzzed against the metal dessert table. Dad's phone vibrated in his jacket pocket. Mom's lit up beside the microphone. For 1 second, nobody reached for anything. Then Melissa grabbed her phone. She read the screen. "No." Dad opened his notice. Mom picked up hers. I took my phone from the bag and opened the campaign alert. "Restricted purpose misuse confirmed. The improper payout of $28,000 was approved for recovery from the receiving business account. The former beneficiaries were permanently removed from campaign access. The remaining $46,000 had been released for direct payment to the verified hospital account." A payment confirmation number appeared beneath Brianna's name. The platform had executed the rule. It didn't ask the room to believe me. It didn't weigh which daughter deserved more help. It matched the restricted campaign purpose to the transfer record and acted on what the beneficiaries had done. Melissa looked at Dad. They reversed it. Dad's eyes moved across his own screen. "What does it say about timing?" "It says the debit is processing now." Mom turned to me. "Stop it. I can't. You filed it. You can withdraw it. The review is complete. Call them. The recovery was approved and released." Melissa pushed past a chair. "My equipment payments come out Monday." I didn't answer. "My payroll account is connected to that bank. You need to call your bank. You did this. The platform recovered a restricted payout. Don't hide behind that." "I'm not hiding." Dad came toward me with his phone in one hand. "There has to be an appeal. The notice tells you how to respond. You're the organizer. Tell them we resolved it." "We didn't. We will now." "No." Mom looked around the room, then lowered her voice. "Please, Jasmine, we'll work something out. You already worked something out. You put it against my house. You don't have to punish your sister." "I'm not financing the bakery," Melissa said. "I'm asking you to call the platform." "No." "Then lend me enough to cover the reversal." "No." She stared at me as if she hadn't understood. I repeated it. "No." Dad said, "You have available credit. It isn't available to Melissa. You could prevent people from losing their jobs. Melissa needs to speak to her bank and change her expenses. You know she can't fix this overnight. Neither could I." The verified transfer copy returned to my hand. I placed it inside the medical file. Mom stood beside the center microphone, but she no longer controlled the room. Donors were checking their phones. Relatives were rereading the campaign update. Brianna had the hospital confirmation open on her screen. She looked at me. "The deposit is paid? The payment is confirmed." Her shoulders dropped. Across the room, Melissa began calling her bank. Dad pulled Mom aside and spoke to her in a low voice. The food was still on the tables. The bakery menus were still at every place. My parents' revised agenda remained inside the event binder. None of those things had changed. What changed was the belief holding them together. Everyone now knew whose account received the first payout, why my parents expected me to replace it, and what the fundraiser had done when the transfer log was reviewed. The center microphone remained on the table between Mom and Dad, but neither of them reached for it. For several seconds, the only sound was Melissa speaking to an automated banking system. Then chairs began moving. People didn't rush out. That would have been easier. They stood in small groups and spoke quietly while gathering coats and leftover containers. The donor who had questioned Dad came to our table. "I'm sorry I repeated what I was told," she said. I nodded. "Thank you for saying that." She turned to Brianna. "I'm glad the hospital has the deposit." "So am I," Brianna said. Across the room, two relatives approached Mom. She started explaining that the platform had overreacted. One of them asked whether she had known the account belonged to Melissa. Mom said, "We believed it was temporary." The relative asked again. Mom walked away. Dad stayed near the center table, reading the recovery notice. Nobody asked him to continue his accounting. Melissa ended her call and came straight toward me. "The bank put a hold on outgoing payments," she said. "I can't change that. You can lend me enough to keep payroll clear." "No, I'm not asking for $28,000. "How much?" She named an amount. I didn't write it down. It wasn't Brianna's expense, and it wasn't mine. "No." Her eyes filled, but her voice stayed hard. "You're really going to stand there while the bakery collapses? I'm going to take Brianna home. You could fix this with one transfer. That's how we got here." She looked at Brianna. "Are you okay with this?" Brianna said, "Don't ask me for money taken in my name. I'm asking your mother. You're asking in front of me." Melissa turned away. She began packing desserts into bakery boxes. Her staff had already left, so she carried the warming trays alone. Dad helped after a few minutes. Mom folded tablecloths without speaking to either of them. Brianna and I stayed to clean the campaign table. The hall manager came out with the event binder. "Do you need the projector after all?" she asked. "No." She glanced toward my parents. I heard enough. That was all she said. We carried the donor cards and medical file to my car. Before leaving, Brianna stood beneath the cottonwood trees and took a long breath. "I thought I'd feel better," she said. "The hospital payment is confirmed." "I know. That part is good." "It is." She looked through the hall window. Melissa was dragging a trash bag toward the kitchen. "I still hate this. You can hate it, do you?" "Yes." She nodded. That was our relationship after the supper. Not cheerful, not repaired by a confirmation number, but honest. The hospital called the next morning. The $46,000 payment had posted directly to Brianna's account. The deposit requirement was satisfied. Her surgery date was no longer conditional. I asked the billing representative to email a paid deposit receipt. When it arrived, I printed it and placed it in the medical file. Then I called Brianna. It posted. She didn't speak right away. Finally, she said, "Say it again. The deposit is paid. The surgery is on schedule." I heard her start crying. I didn't tell her everything was okay. It wasn't. I stayed on the phone until she could breathe normally again. The campaign needed a final payment update for the donors. I opened a blank page and wrote the first sentence that came into my head. I stared at it. It was accurate. It also sounded like a headline, not a medical update. I deleted it. Then I wrote that the restricted payout had been recovered, the hospital deposit had been paid directly, and future campaign expenses would remain under organizer control. I thanked the donors for helping Brianna receive care on schedule. I didn't mention the bakery. People understood anyway. Comments appeared beneath the update. Most were supportive. A few donors asked whether my parents would remain involved. I didn't answer family questions on the campaign page. Mom sent one message that afternoon. "I hope you're satisfied." Dad sent nothing. Melissa emailed a copy of the bank's recovery notice and asked again for a short-term loan. I replied with one sentence. "I will not provide money, credit, account access, or unpaid work for the bakery." She wrote back, "Then don't pretend you care what happens to me." I didn't respond. Within a week, Melissa canceled the largest part of her expansion. The new commercial space had included a front retail section she hadn't opened yet. She gave that up and kept production inside her original bakery. The oven stayed. Some of the other equipment went back. She reduced the menu and handled more shifts herself. She posted that the change was a strategic decision made to protect quality. She never admitted publicly why it happened. My parents paid the immediate shortage in her business account. They didn't have $28,000 sitting in checking, so they sold their camper. Dad listed it 2 days after the supper. It sold quickly because it was clean and well-maintained. He texted me after the sale. "Hope everyone who applauded you understands what this cost us." Nobody had applauded me. I wrote, "The transfer cost you the camper. The recovery documented it." He didn't answer. The money from the camper helped Melissa settle the negative business balance and cover the payments that had hit during the reversal. She still owed my parents part of what they advanced. For once, they didn't ask me to create the repayment schedule. They made one themselves. I knew because Mom accidentally forwarded it to me while trying to send it to Melissa. The message included monthly dates and a smaller amount Melissa could manage after scaling back. Mom followed with, "Please delete that." I deleted it. I didn't correct the figures. I didn't remind her to include the equipment return credit. I didn't ask whether Melissa had agreed. They handled it. There were mistakes. Dad missed a pharmacy refill and had to drive across town the next morning. Mom paid the property tax 2 days late and called the county office herself. Their insurance portal locked them out after too many password attempts. Nobody was harmed. Nothing became a crisis. They reset the password. The family group became quiet. A few relatives contacted me privately and apologized. Others said nothing. One continued telling Mom that family matters should stay private, as if privacy had been the problem instead of the tool. I stopped checking who believed what. The week before surgery, Melissa called from her regular number. I answered because her emails had stopped asking for money. "What?" she said when I picked up. "You called me. I didn't think you'd answer. Is this about Brianna?" She paused. "I wanted to know what day the surgery is." "You know the date. I mean, what time? We don't have the final arrival time yet. Can I come?" I looked at the preoperative instructions on my table. "No." She inhaled sharply. "I'm her aunt. And you used her fundraiser for your bakery. Mom and Dad told me it was available. You knew what the campaign was for. You already got the money back. That doesn't restore trust. So I'm just cut off forever?" "I didn't say forever." "What do you want me to do? Stop asking me to solve the consequences. I'm not asking for money. You're asking me to make you feel included before you've taken responsibility." Melissa went quiet. Then she said, "I'm sorry the timing affected the surgery. That isn't an apology. I don't know what words you want. I'm not giving you a script." She ended the call. That was Melissa's outcome before the surgery. She lost the expansion, worked longer hours, and blamed the recovery more than the transfer. She did not come to the hospital. Mom and Dad asked through Brianna whether they could be in the waiting room. Brianna told them to ask me directly. They didn't. On the morning of the surgery, I drove Brianna while the sky was still dark. She wore loose gray pants and carried a small bag with a phone charger, lip balm, and the book she'd been trying to finish for a month. At a red light, she asked, "Are you scared?" "Yes." "Good." I glanced at her. "Good?" "I didn't want another answer where you protect me from the answer. I'm terrified." "Me too." The light changed. At the hospital, she checked in under her own name and handed over her identification. The clerk found the paid deposit without asking me for anything. That ordinary moment nearly broke me. No brochure, no loan application, no call to my parents. Just a paid account and a scheduled procedure. A nurse placed the hospital bracelet around Brianna's wrist. Before they took her back, she held out her phone. "Keep this." I put it in my bag. "And don't answer Grandma if she calls," she said. "I won't, unless something happens. If something happens, I'll decide." She nodded. "That's better." The surgery lasted several hours. I sat in the waiting area with the medical file on my lap. Mom texted once asking whether Brianna had gone in. I answered yes. Dad asked for updates. I wrote, "I'll contact you after the surgeon speaks with me." Neither of them argued. When the surgeon finally came out, he told me the valve repair had gone as planned. Brianna was stable and being moved to recovery. I thanked him. then sat down because my legs stopped cooperating. I called Mom and Dad from the waiting area. "She's stable," I said. "The surgery went as planned." Mom started crying. Dad asked when they could visit. "Not today." "We'll only stay a few minutes." "Not today." He was quiet. Then he said, "All right." That was the first boundary he accepted without making me defend it. Brianna woke slowly. When I was allowed into recovery, she looked at me and tried to speak. I leaned closer. "Did they get paid?" she whispered. "Yes." Her eyes closed again. I sat beside her bed until evening, holding the phone she'd trusted me to keep. By midnight, Brianna was awake enough to complain about the ice chips. That was when I finally believed she was all right. She stayed in the hospital for several days. I slept badly in a chair beside her, answered work emails from the cafeteria, and kept every receipt in the medical file. Mom and Dad received one update each morning. They didn't come until Brianna asked to see them. When they arrived, Mom carried soup in a sealed container. Dad brought a phone charger. They stayed 20 minutes. Mom didn't touch the blankets or rearrange anything. Dad didn't ask me about insurance. Before leaving, Mom said, "Thank you for letting us visit." I didn't answer with reassurance. I said, "Brianna wanted you here." I know. That mattered. The recovered $28,000 returned to the restricted campaign balance. I used it only through the organizer account. Follow-up bills, medication, rehabilitation appointments, and related recovery costs were paid from there. Every payment had a record. I posted monthly totals for the donors without sharing Brianna's private medical details. When the last large post-operative bill cleared, I closed the campaign to new donations. Melissa kept the smaller bakery. For several months, she worked the early production shift herself and handled weekend orders she used to pass to employees. She sold one piece of expansion equipment and returned another. She also followed the repayment schedule my parents created. Nobody asked me to monitor it. Mom and Dad learned their accounts because they had to. Dad disputed an insurance charge without calling me. Mom renewed the camper insurance before remembering they no longer owned the camper, then canceled it herself. She told me about that mistake during a short phone call. "I felt stupid," she said. "It happens. I fixed it." Good. There was a pause where she once would have asked me to review the cancellation. She didn't. That was the second time I saw the new pattern hold. Brianna recovered slowly. She got tired after simple things and hated being reminded not to lift anything heavy. One afternoon, I found her carrying a laundry basket. "Put that down. It's towels. You're not supposed to lift it. I'm cleared for this weight." "Since when?" "Yesterday." "You didn't tell me." She set the basket on the couch. "I'm trying to tell you now, but you're doing the thing." "What thing?" "The thing where helping becomes deciding." I opened my mouth, then closed it. She waited. "You're right," I said. "I know." I laughed. She carried the towels down the hall. Letting her recover included letting her become responsible for herself again. I had spent so much time refusing my parents' control that I almost missed my own version of it. Melissa finished repaying my parents 8 months after the supper. She sent me one message: "Last payment is done. I'm not asking you for anything. I wanted you to know." I wrote, "Thank you for telling me." A week later, Mom asked whether Dad and she could meet me for coffee. She added, "We won't bring bills." I agreed to 30 minutes at a cafe near my office. They arrived before me. Dad had already ordered his own coffee using the touchscreen kiosk he once claimed was impossible to understand. Mom kept both hands around her cup. "We owe you an apology," she said. I waited. Dad looked uncomfortable, but he didn't interrupt her. "We knew the campaign money was for Brianna," Mom continued. "We told ourselves Melissa's need was more immediate because the bakery might close. We also told ourselves you could replace the money." Dad said, "We counted your house and credit as if they belonged to the family." "Yes," I said. He looked down. "That was wrong." Mom's eyes filled. "We lied when you asked where the payout went. Then we blamed you when you protected the rest." I let the silence sit. Neither of them asked whether I forgave them. Dad said, We're managing our own accounts now. We're not asking you to take that back. Good. Mom nodded. We'd like some contact, whatever you're comfortable with. I'm comfortable with occasional calls and planned visits. What about holidays? Dad asked. We'll decide one at a time. He started to respond, then stopped. All right, he said. That coffee didn't restore trust. It gave us a place to test whether their behavior could match their words. Sometimes it did. Mom asked before visiting. Dad stopped sending me photographs of official-looking envelopes. When they needed help understanding something, they called the company responsible. Sometimes the old pattern surfaced. Mom once said, Melissa has been working so hard, in the tone that used to mean I should offer something. I said, I'm glad she's handling it. Mom went quiet, then changed the subject. She didn't ask. Melissa apologized later by phone. I knew the campaign was medical, she said. Mom said they had authority and I chose not to ask more because I needed the money. That was the first honest description she gave me. I'm sorry, she said. Not for the timing, not because the recovery hurt. I'm sorry I took it. Thank you. Can we go back to normal? No. She exhaled. Can we ever have a relationship? Maybe. It would have to be a different one. We began with occasional messages. No money, no business advice, no family errands passed through her to me. When the bakery's refrigerator failed, she told Mom, not me. Mom listened and wished her luck. Melissa found a repair company and arranged a payment plan herself. Nobody called me. That small silence felt more convincing than any apology. I used to think my place in the family depended on being the person who could fix everything. The truth was less flattering. They liked the arrangement, and I was afraid to find out who I'd be without it. Once I stopped volunteering my life as the solution, there was room for something smaller and more honest. If this story stayed with you, subscribe and tell me which city you're watching from. Months after the final follow-up, Brianna came over for dinner. She brought the hospital bracelet she'd found in the pocket of her overnight bag. I was going to throw it away, she said. Why didn't you? I thought you might want it. I took the paid deposit receipt from the medical file. The paper was creased from being handled so often. Brianna placed the bracelet on top, then changed her mind and set it beside the receipt. We ate dinner without answering a single family emergency. Afterward, she carried the plates to the sink while I wiped the table. Neither of us moved the two things near the fruit bowl. Brianna's hospital bracelet rested beside the paid deposit receipt on my kitchen table.